Hello and welcome to the Ecocast by Actual Tech Media. Our topic today, preventing and recovering from ransomware before it's too late. Now, I was thinking about this topic and it reminded me of motorcycles. And I know that's an odd connection, but bear with me for a moment. When I was taking my motorcycle safety course a few years back, one of the instructors was talking about the importance of wearing the proper gear. He pointed out to us that we could watch videos of professional racers who drop their bikes and are then able to get back up and walk off the track. I mean, sure, maybe a little bruised, worse for the wear, but functional. The key thing I remember this instructor saying was that the differentiator between how you walk away from an accident is, sure, partially reflexes and experience, but largely it's your safety gear. He told us to dress for the slide, not the ride. So this means going out for every ride in the best protective gear you can, because that's what's going to make the difference. And believe me, this is not something that I like to imagine. I don't like the idea of dropping my bike. I don't enjoy thinking about what could go wrong. But I do feel better when I'm fully geared up because I know that I'm doing everything I can to mitigate those potential risks. So that's what we're here to talk about today. How do we dress for the slide? How do we set ourselves up so that we can have peace of mind, knowing that we've prepared as best we can, and make sure that if and maybe when something does happen, we're able to walk away with the least damage possible. Luckily today, we're going to be joined by some amazing humans from Sophos, Lacework, Quantum, Rubrik, and Gigamon. These experts are here to help us explore how you can best gear up to protect your organization's finances, reputation, and business operations. Now, if you have not joined us for an Ecocast in the past, a very special welcome to all the first-timers out there. Actual Tech Media created the Ecocast and the Megacast series to help educate IT professionals like yourself on the latest innovations and trends in enterprise technology. These events are designed to get you the hottest insights and up-to-date information efficiently from the comfort of your home or office. Megacast and Ecocast allow you to pose and answer questions, to connect with other experts in your field, and to help you solve your most pressing technology challenges. Now, before we get into our sessions today, I do have a few things I want to go over with you. Of course, if your eyes went right to that little prize icon, we do have some awesome prizes lined up for you. I'm going to come back to those in just a moment here. But first, I want to draw your attention to the Questions tab in your webinar control panel. If you haven't already said hi, we love to see people connecting from across the world, so do head on over there, drop a greeting, give a wave to your friends in the Actual Tech Media community. The Questions console is also a great place to let us know about any technical issues that might come up today. Hopefully that doesn't happen. A quick reminder that a browser refresh is going to fix just about any issues with slides, audio, or video. But if not, go ahead and throw a comment in the Questions tab. The Actual Tech Media crew will be there to help. But most importantly, we want this to be an informative and engaging event for you, which means we want those technical questions. So throughout today's Ecocast, we hope that you'll be sure to ask all of the ransomware prevention and recovery questions that you might have. Not only will we have team members responding to you during the live webinar today, but we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of each presentation. If we do not get to your question during the live webinar, do not worry. The awesome humans from Sophos, Lacework, Quantum, Rubrik, and Gigamon will be following up with you afterwards. Okay, and of course, good things should always be shared. So when you hear something interesting or exciting on today's Ecocast, be sure to get social and share that with your friends. You can use that Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's event is going to be automatically added to your post. So while you're exploring the audience console, make sure to check out the Handouts tab. You're going to find some fantastic resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. There is an awesome collection of data sheets, white papers, and demos, so be sure to click around in that Handout section and download some of those great resources to read and share after the webinar today. Okay, well, I should probably introduce myself. My name is Jess Steinbach. I am absolutely thrilled to be your moderator for this Ecocast. We're also going to be joined by Scott Becker in just a moment here. And the good news just keeps on coming, guys, because it's not just great content we're giving away on the Ecocast today. We also have opportunities to win one of 3 $500 Amazon gift cards. So again, you must be in attendance during the live webinar to qualify for the prize and meet all of the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, if you're not sure what those are, click into that Handouts tab, scroll down to the bottom, and you can find the full T's and C's listed there. As I mentioned earlier when we were chatting about that question section, great place to say hi, great place to reach out to our team. And most importantly, a great place to send in your questions. In fact, we're so excited about your questions today that we are giving away a $50 Amazon gift card to the best question asked, and that's in each of the sessions. The teams are going to review all questions asked after the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get asked live, there is still a chance to win. And we will follow up with all winners after the webinar. If you have any questions about whether or not you're eligible for those prizes, I'm just going to remind you that you can head back to that T's and C's section or a handout there for you. A few quick reminders on the screen, including the fact that all prize winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media. That's an important detail there. And hey, if you are a lucky winner here today, you always have the option to donate the value of the prize to one of our selected charities. Thanks to generous prize winners on previous Actual Tech Media webinars, thousands of dollars have been donated to these wonderful charities. So if you are a winner today and you would like to get involved with one of these amazing organizations, please let us know because we would just absolutely love to help make that happen. All right, again, we are thrilled that you are here live with us today. We want to keep connecting with you, so please do reach out to us on social media. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, check us out on YouTube, and hey, follow us on LinkedIn as well. Now, this is something very exciting. If you have not checked out the Actual Tech Media Guerrilla Guide Book Club, what are you waiting for? Now's the time. Get in there. The Guerrilla Guide Book Club gives you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts. So you can stay up to date on all the trending enterprise technology. Yes, the books will work on your Kindle or mobile device. So if you're working remote, if you're already out at your summer cottage or at the beach already this summer, you can read these, a little lakeside reading for you here. So make sure to download those exciting resources at guerrillaguide.com. There's also a link in that handy dandy handouts tab for you as well. All right, well, as I've said, we think that you're pretty amazing. We're guessing you have an amazing community. We want to get to know them. So another way that you can win a prize today is to refer an industry friend or coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. And you're going to find a link to do that right there in your handouts tab. You're also going to be automatically redirected at the end of the webinar as well, so lots of chances. Now, I do want to assure you, because this comes up a lot, people get worried about referring friends. They don't want them to get spammed. So we promise not to annoy your friends. We're not going to spam your friends and coworkers. We will send them an invitation to a list of upcoming webinars. If they don't respond, we're only going to send them one more reminder, and that's it. Then both you and your coworker could win a $300 Amazon gift card. We hold those drawings every month, so you both get cool content, and your friends are going to thank you for that. Plus, you both get a chance to win $300 each. So that's just win-win. All right, guys. Well, I know that we have a lot of fantastic content to dig into today in this Ecocast, and I think it's about time we get started. To kick us off, I am so excited to introduce my friend and fellow moderator, Scott Becker. Today, Scott is joined by an absolutely fascinating expert, Alan Liska, Senior Security Architect and Ransomware Specialist, who is here to talk to us about the state of ransomware attacks and what you need to know at this point in the year, which I don't know if you guys were aware of this, but we are halfway through 2022. I have no idea how that happened. We're about halfway through. We're going to get a nice little midpoint update. I have to tell you all, I was chatting with these guys this morning, and this is just going to be an awesome conversation. So I am not going to keep us any longer. Let's jump on over to Scott and Alan.
Alan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me back, Scott, and thank you for having matching Grogos.
It's always great to check in with you because you really track global ransomware trends, and you're one of the first calls many experts and organizations make in the event of a major ransomware development or incident. And for the event today, we're going to hear about solutions for preventing and recovering from ransomware. Before we get into those really important sessions, we wanted to get a sense of what's happening now. So obviously, the big gorilla in the room is the Russia-Ukraine war. Historically, Russian groups have been some of the most active ransomware attackers, and even in relative peacetime, Ukraine has served as sort of a free fire zone and testing ground for Russian cyber attack techniques. But we're 100 days roughly into the kinetic phase of this war. What are you seeing in terms of global effects on the ransomware side? Have Russian attacks stepped up and spilled over, or has the cyber focus moved to tactical things that support ground troops? What's happening?
Yeah. So it's been really interesting. Right at the start of the invasion of Ukraine, one of the biggest ransomware groups, Conti, came out in full-throated support of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which turned out to be a huge tactical mistake. Good for the rest of us, bad for Conti. And because of that, a Ukrainian researcher who had gained access, dumped 2 years of chat logs, manuals, infrastructure information, and so on. And that disrupted Conti attacks for a period of time. And again, Conti is one of the most aggressive ransomware groups, and also one that we think has the closest ties to the Russian government. So we actually, normally what we see in January is we see a slowdown in ransomware attacks as ransomware groups, they tend to take off December, and so they're just kind of getting ramped up. But that slowdown lasted to the middle of February, so a lot longer than normal. Now, that being said, ransomware attacks in general are back up year over year. So this time last year, roughly January through the end of May, there were just under 1,000 publicly reported ransomware attacks. This year, we're up to 1,200, again, same time period, roughly January to the end of May. So even with that slowdown, there are still more ransomware attacks than last year. As far as what we're seeing out of Russia, obviously the ransomware attacks are continued unabated, but in Ukraine specifically, rather than ransomware, we're starting to see a lot of wiper attacks. So we've identified 9 different wipers being used against Ukrainian targets that we think are all of Russian origin. And the difference between a ransomware attack and a wiper attack is, with a ransomware attack, you can recover. Even if you don't pay the ransom, you can restore from backup or whatever. But a wiper is designed to be destructive on those computers. Now, Ukraine has been preparing for this, and they apparently have said that they've had a lot of Western aid in coming in and building the defenses. So in addition to their own defenses, which are very, very good, having Western countries offer help and assistance has mitigated the worst effects of those attacks, but there definitely have been Ukrainian targets hit by these wipers.
And have you seen spillover outside of Ukraine in terms of those wiper attacks, ending up in other countries? Or
not really. There may have been 1 or 2 targets hit here or there that were incidental fire, but not enough that it's made big news. Mostly what we're seeing outside of Ukraine is still standard ransomware attacks.
Gotcha. And on the Russian side, there had been sort of a glimmer of hope that Russia might prosecute a ransomware actor in the REvil gang that was responsible for the attacks on Kaseya last year. So I know they arrested 14 people in January at the request of the US, but now Russian prosecutors, I understand, are talking about dropping the prosecutions and considering a deal to put those alleged hackers to work for state security services. What do you make of those developments, and what does that say about the state of international cooperation on these issues?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's expected. There was a lot of cynicism when the arrest first happened that these arrests wouldn't stand and they would wind up not being something would happen, that they would fall through the cracks. And it actually is a big change. A lot of people don't realize that, like back in 2014, there was a lot of cooperation between the Department of Justice and the Russian government to arrest some of these early ransomware groups that were operating inside of Russia, but hitting Russian targets as well as US targets and targets around the world. So there was a lot of cooperation, and that is completely gone. There is no interest in cooperating with Western governments on behalf of Russia. At least that appears to be the case. At least that's the message they're sending here. There's a lot of evidence that that has been provided by the Department of Justice that these are the attackers behind the Kaseya attack, as well as many other attacks. And yet, Russia doesn't see enough to prosecute. So we don't think that there's going to be a lot of cooperation until there's a regime change in Russia. And so what that means is that any action that the US or European governments take is going to have to be unilateral, whether that's pulling money back from cryptocurrencies, breaking into ransomware infrastructure and disabling it, or whatever kind of activity that they're going to engage in.
Gotcha. I also wanted to ask you, it's June, we're midway into 2022. You'd mentioned a little bit about the pace of attacks stepping up over last year, but how does this year seem to be, shaping up in terms of ransomware trends?
So there are a few things. I know you and I talked earlier this year about the fact that there are more countries involved in ransomware attacks, and that continues to grow. So we're continuing to see more ransomware attacks that originate from groups operating in Iran, in China, and of course North Korea always has to be a thorn in everybody's side. We're also seeing an increase in say this the right way, in extortion-only groups. So these are groups that go in, they steal files, and they publish them to the extortion sites, or sell the data, but they don't actually encrypt anything inside the networks. So Lapsus was sort of a big example of that, but we're seeing more and more of these groups come to the foreground. We're also seeing an increased interest in South American and Asian targets outside of Japan. Japan's always been highly targeted by ransomware groups. So we're seeing an increased interest there. I'm sure everybody here watching is aware of what happened in Costa Rica, where they wound up having to declare a state of emergency because the ransomware attack was so bad. So we're seeing that sort of spreading out of targets around the world.
Well, Alan, this has been so informative as always. Thank you for being here and bringing context to the threat landscape for us.
Hey, it was my pleasure. I'm always great talking to you, Scott.
Oh man, what an interesting conversation. I love listening to those two talk. And I love looking at Alan's toys. You guys can't see me, but I have to tell you that like Scott and Alan, I also have a little Grogu keeping me company today, as well as Groot. I also have a Groot. So if anyone else has any favorites, office or desktop models, toys, please let us know in the chat. I'm curious who's keeping you company on your desk today. Shout out your favorites. And while you're doing that, hey, maybe click on the poll you can see up on the screen now. We're really curious, what is your time frame for taking action on some of the solutions that you're going to be learning about today? When do you think that you're going to need to start implementing some of these strategies or solutions? Because we're going to hear a lot of cool things. When are you kind of thinking you want to get rolling? I'm looking at the results coming in. Looks like we're actually almost close to half of the people out there are really not sure. And I've said this before, I love starting an Ecocast or a Megacast that way because it means that there's lots of room to grow and learn. It means that you guys are just kind of starting this planning and strategizing phase, and that's exciting. So great to be a part of that, and let's keep rolling with our sessions here. All right, guys. Well, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to our first presenter in today's awesome Ecocast. Sally Adam, Managing Director at Sophos, is here with us. Sally, thank you so much for joining us today. I know that the audience out there is pumped and ready to get started on this Ecocast, so I am going to hand things right over to you.
Excited to share with you the findings from Sophos's latest annual study of the real-world ransomware experiences of IT professionals working at the front line. Now, we've conducted this study every year, and this time it's revealed that the threat environment has got even more challenging. It's also revealed the growing financial and operational burden that ransomware is placing on its victims. Plus, we're going to shine light onto the relationship between ransomware and cyber insurance and the role insurance is playing in driving changes to cyber defenses. So let me start off by sharing with you some details of the survey. So we commissioned Vanson Bourne, an independent research provider, to survey 5,600 IT professionals across 31 countries. The respondents were all from organizations with between 100 and 5,000 employees, so kind of mid-sized organizations. And we conducted the research in January and February of this year, asking the respondents to think about their experiences over the previous year, so reflecting their experiences in 2021 in quite a lot of cases. This was completely vendor agnostic. Vanson Bourne, they did all the research. We don't know which cybersecurity solutions any of the respondents were using. So let's jump in and start off by looking at the reality of ransomware today. The first headline is that ransomware attacks are increasing. We asked the respondents if their organisation had been hit by ransomware in the last year, which we defined as one or more devices impacted by the attack, but not necessarily encrypted. Almost 2/3, 66% said yes. This is a considerable increase from the 37% that said they'd been hit by ransomware in the previous survey, so for 2020. In fact, a 78% increase. Now, this huge increase is, of course, worrying. And when we think about what's behind it, well, it's clear that adversaries are getting much more skilled, much more competent and capable at executing attacks at scale. It's also reflecting the growing success of the ransomware as a service model, which significantly extends the reach of ransomware. It enables less skilled attackers, adversaries, to employ the skills of ransomware specialists in their attacks. So ransomware as a service is a really big factor here. Now, if you want to have more information on ransomware as a service, do look at our 2022 threat report, where there's a lot of insights from our threat intelligence team. There was variation in the level of ransomware attacks by country. I said at the start we surveyed 31 countries. Those countries are all listed on the bottom of this chart here. The number in parentheses is the number of respondents from that country. As you can see, Austria and Australia topping the list with 80% or more of respondents saying their organisation was hit by ransomware in the last year. However, even at the far right, even when we're looking at the ones that are least affected, South Africa, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, we can see that over half of the respondents said that their organizations were hit by ransomware in the last year. So it really is very prevalent. In fact, it's become the norm to be hit. We've also got to look at that data by sector. Again, the sectors that we surveyed are along the bottom there. And again, we can see some changes based on industry, but still, over half of respondents in all sectors say they were hit by ransomware in the last year. At the top of the chart, we have media, leisure and entertainment, and also retail. Now, retail is a sector that we spoke about a lot last year with the impact of the pandemic, the rapid move to online trading, the increase in online shopping. There was a big increase in online retail, and this potentially opened up some vulnerabilities in those environments. But yeah, all sectors really are heavily affected by ransomware. And not only is the percentage of organizations that are hit by ransomware going up, so is the success rate of the adversaries in encrypting data. In fact, we saw that 65% of ransomware attacks resulted in data being encrypted. This is quite a jump from the 54% that was reported last year. So two concerning data points coming together: more people suffering an attack and more data being encrypted in an attack. There was a reduction in the percentage of respondents that experienced an extortion-only attack. So an attack where the adversaries stole data and then said, pay us money or else we're going to make this data public. Those extortion-only attacks went down from 7% in 2020 to 4% last year. Now, this on the face of it is good news, but actually what we're seeing in Sophos Labs is that adversaries are combining the encryption and extortion tactics. So they're encrypting data and trying to get money out of you to get the decryption key. If that doesn't work, they then threaten to make the data public. So really, it's a combining of these two approaches by the adversaries that we're seeing here. Now, these ransomware findings are also reflective of a more broadly challenging threat environment, outside just ransomware. In fact, over half of the respondents, 57%, said that they had seen an increase in volume of cyber attacks generally on their organization in the last year. 59% had experienced an increase in the complexity of attacks on their organization, and 53% saw an increase in the impact of cyber attacks. And in fact, almost 3/4, 72%, had seen an increase in at least one of these areas. So really reflecting this growingly challenging threat environment that we all face. There is some good news, though, to share now, which is around the restoration of encrypted data. 99% of respondents said that whose data was encrypted said that they got some encrypted data back. This is an increase from last year. Our previous surveys, 96% said they got some encrypted data back. So it's now 99%, almost everyone. Backups are the #1 method used to restore data. This is encouraging. We've been advocating for backups for a long time. And with backups, it's important to not just take the backups, but also practice restoring from backups so that if your data does get encrypted, you can get back up and running really quickly. We also saw, though, that 46% said that the ransom was paid. So, almost half are saying they paid the ransom. And 30% said they used other means to get their data back. Now, clearly, this all adds up to more than 100%. And this is really showing us that organizations are actually using multiple methods in parallel to restore their data. In fact, 44% of the respondents used more than one method to get their data back. This is actually something we saw, perhaps one of the most high-profile ransomware attack of last year, the Colonial Pipeline attack. They used backups and paid the ransom to get data back. And we can understand really that when your data is encrypted, you want to get back up and running as quickly as possible. So organizations are trying multiple approaches in order to restore their data to get their organization functioning again. I want to just share with you here this data by sector so that you can look and see how different sectors are performing. The purple bar is the percentage of respondents in that sector who said they paid the ransom. The lighter blue bar is those who used backups, and the darker blue bar is those that used other means. We can see here that healthcare is actually the sector most likely to pay the ransom. 61% of healthcare respondents whose data was encrypted said they paid the ransom to get the data back. State and local government is least likely to pay the ransom, 32%, so almost half the level of ransom payment as we saw in healthcare. Conversely, when it comes to using backups to restore data, we can see media, leisure and entertainment is most likely to use backups, followed by energy, oil, gas and utilities. So two sectors that were most hit by ransomware are also two of the most able at restoring data using backups. Now, it may be a case of practice makes perfect, unfortunately, but what's likely is that perhaps given the frequency of attacks in media, leisure and entertainment and ransom and retail, these sectors have put extra effort, extra focus into their backups and restoring data effectively from their backups. Let's now look at how much data is actually restored after paying the ransom. And what we see here is that actually there's been a reduction in the percentage of data that was restored after paying the ransom. Those who paid the ransom said they got back on average 61% of their data, slightly down from the 65% that was restored in the previous year. We're also seeing a reduction in the percentage that got back all their data after paying the ransom. Last year, 8% said that they got back all their data. This year, it's gone down to 4%. So the data is clearly showing that whilst a lot of people are paying the ransom isn't going to get you all your data back. And you can't choose which percentage, which data it is that you're having restored. So when you're thinking about paying the ransom, when you're working out your cost-benefit analysis, do bear in mind that paying the ransom is very, very unlikely to get you all your data back. Backups are essential. Now, I've mentioned the word ransom quite a few times. Let's have a look at the actual ransom payments. And as the headline there says, ransom payments have increased. Now, 965 respondents to this study whose organization had data encrypted and paid the ransom shared the exact amount. So this is a very extensive database of ransom payments for mid-sized organizations here. Now, within these 965 respondents, there was huge variation. There was a few $100s going up to over $10 million. But the general trend is upwards. And we can see this in a number of ways. Firstly, when we look at the percentage of respondents who said that they paid a ransom of $1 million or more, last year that was 4%. This year, 11% paid ransoms of $1 million or more, almost a threefold increase. Similarly, when we look at the respondents who paid less than $10,000, this has dropped. So last year, a third, 34%, said their organization paid a ransom of less than $10,000. This year, it's a fifth, 21%. And the average ransom payment itself is $812,000, which is almost 5 times higher than the average ransom payment from 2020, which was $170,000. Now, this ransom payment average is influenced by 15 8-digit payments. So there's 15 really big payments that are pushing this number up. But I think when we look at the percentage paying less than $10,000, the percentage paying $1 million or more, we can see that the general trend is very much upwards for ransom payments. Now, I do have the data here for the average ransom payments by country, as I thought you'd probably find this one interesting. I'm afraid you may need your glasses to squint and look at some of the numbers here. What I do encourage you is when you're looking at the ransom payments for individual countries, that number in parenthesis after the country name is the number of respondents, number of data points we have for that country. So if it's a small number, I'm looking Saudi Arabia 2, Switzerland 7, do bear this in mind. As you can see, huge variation here. Japan has by far the highest average ransom payments. There are a few really big ransom payments that hit Japan, but that's based off an average from 60 respondents, so it's very significant. But even at the lower end of the ransom payments, $100,000 or so, that's still a significant amount of money for any organization to have to find. What's particularly interesting is when we break the data down, the ransom payment data down by sector, and we look at, okay, how much are different sectors paying? And we can see some real significant variations. Manufacturing and production, energy, oil, gas, utilities, both have averages of over $2 million. These are likely sectors that are able to pay, they've got reserves, and that in the case of energy, oil, gas, and utilities, there's a huge pressure to get up and running and to pay the ransom, pay whatever is needed to restore services. At the other end of the scale, we see local state government and healthcare have the lowest average ransom payments. And that's quite interesting because we saw that healthcare was the sector most likely to pay the ransom, but it has the average lowest ransom payment. So, we see with healthcare, again, it's a sector that needs to get back up and running quickly. You have people's health there, people's well-being, need to look after that. That's a primary consideration. But often healthcare, particularly where it's a public service, there's very little money to go around. So there's less funds actually for the adversaries to extract from healthcare organizations. Let's have a look at the wider impact of ransomware. We've had a look at those ransom payments, but let's have a look at the wider business impact. And they're clearly very widespread. That ransom payment is just a small part of the story. 90% of organizations that were hit by ransomware said the attack impacted their ability to operate. And of those that are private sector organizations, 86% said it caused them to lose business or revenue. So really, when we think about the impact of ransomware, we need to consider this wider situation. And also when we're thinking about the cost benefit of enhancing defenses against ransomware, these needs to come into the equation too. If you're investing time and effort and resources into improving your anti-ransomware defenses, you're going to be saving in terms of ability to operate being impacted, revenue being lost. Now, there is some good news here to share, which is that the average remediation cost for a ransomware attack has come down. Now, it's still 1.4 million, which is a very, very large amount of money, but it's lower than the 1.85 million that was reported in our previous survey. This likely reflects that, as ransomware has become so commonplace, the reputational damage of an attack has lessened. And in parallel, insurance providers are better able to guide victims swiftly and effectively through the instant response process, which in turn reduces remediation costs. Now, I do have those average remediation costs broken down by country. You can see them here in this table, comparing the 2021 remediation cost with the 2020. All of these figures here are in millions of US dollars, and you can see the year-on-year change in that right-hand column. So hopefully some useful information that is relevant to your country if you're from any of the territories that are represented here. Now, moving on, when it comes to recovering from a ransomware attack, it's a complex process. And organizations that were hit by ransomware on average took 1 month to recover from the most significant attack, which is a significant amount of time. The slowest recovery was in higher education and central federal government. By higher education, I mean 18 plus, so universities, colleges, those type of institutions. In those sectors, around 2 in 5 took over a month to recover from the ransomware attack. In contrast, the fastest sectors were manufacturing and production and financial services, where around 10% took over a month to recover. This is likely the result of high levels of recovery planning and preparation in manufacturing and production and financial services. A worrying finding that came from the survey is that some people still have faith in defences that aren't really defences at all. So of the respondents who said their organisation wasn't hit by ransomware in the last year and they don't expect to be hit in the future, 72%, nearly 3/4, were citing inappropriate tools as reasons that they're not going to be hit. 57% said, they're not going to be hit because they've got backups. 37% said they're not going to be hit because they've got cyber insurance. Of course, backups and insurance are going to help you with your recovery from an attack, but they're not going to be stopping you from being hit in the first place. So it's really important to make sure that you have strong defenses in place that are going to prevent the attack, as well as mitigations to help you recover should you experience an incident. The survey also revealed that simply throwing people and money at the ransomware problem is not the solution. You need to have the right people, the right skills, and the right technology so that you can actually make an impact. Without having that, you're not going to see the return on your investment. Of those who were hit by ransomware in the last year, 64% said that they have more budget than they need, and 24% said they have the right amount of budget. So, the majority is saying they are not short of budget. And similarly, when it comes to headcount, almost 2/3 say they have more headcount than they need, and almost 1/4 says they have exactly what they need. So really, these findings are suggesting that many organizations are struggling to deploy their resources effectively in the face of the accelerating volume, the accelerating complexity of attacks. So really, it's about thinking, how do we make sure we have the right defenses in place? We have the right advanced skills that we need to stop ransomware. Also, we should note that it is also likely that in the wake of being hit by an attack, additional headcount and budget have been provided that can also be used to mitigate future attacks. Now, I want to talk now about cyber insurance. And cyber insurance is a really hot topic. I know many organizations have struggled with cyber insurance renewals over the last 6 to 9 months. So we dive into here a bit of the role of the interrelationship between ransomware and cyber insurance. First up, almost all the respondents, 92%, said that their organization has some form of cyber insurance. Now, we didn't differentiate between whether you have a standalone cyber insurance policy or whether you have a more general liability policy that includes ransomware cover or other cyber insurance cover. So 92% have some form of cyber insurance. 83% have cyber insurance that covers ransomware. Energy, oil, gas, and utilities are most likely to have coverage against ransomware, followed by retail. And we also see, though, that 34% of the respondents say that they have cyber insurance that covers ransomware, but there are policy exclusions. And these may be limits to particular payment areas, so it may be limits to PR coverage as a result of the attack. It may also be limitations in terms of what was paid out. So there may be restrictions on paying ransoms, for example, as well. But clearly the picture here is that having cyber insurance is very much the norm. Cyber insurance adoption increases with organization size. The larger organizations were a little bit more likely to have cover against ransomware than the smaller ones. So we saw there that 83% of organizations have some form of cyber insurance that covers ransomware. Organizations that were hit by ransomware in the last year are much more likely to have ransomware cover than those that were not hit. 89% of those hit by ransomware have insurance that covers ransomware. 70% of those not hit by ransomware have insurance that covers ransomware. And going down to 61% of those who were not hit and don't expect to be hit. Now, the cause and effect here is not clear. It may be that having experienced a ransomware attack directly, organizations that were hit by ransomware have been driven to take out insurance to help mitigate the impact of future attacks. It may also be that adversaries are targeting attacks on organizations that they know have cyber insurance cover against ransomware because it increases their chance of a payout. Another option is that some organizations knew they had weaknesses in their cyber defenses, so took out insurance to mitigate that, and as a result they were of the weaknesses they were hit. So it's likely a combination of those factors. What I have here is by country, the percentage of respondents who said their organization has cyber insurance that covers ransomware. So the kind of greeny turquoise is those who just say they have cyber insurance that covers ransomware. The grey part at the top is those who say they have cover, but it has exceptions or exclusions to it. So you can see the level of cyber insurance cover in your country here. as I said, it is very much the norm. Even Israel, which has the lowest level of cyber insurance cover, is still well over half the respondents have taken out insurance. However, the cyber insurance market has changed a lot over the last year, and cyber insurance has got a lot harder to secure. In fact, 94% of respondents said that the process for securing cover has changed over the last year. Many of the respondents experienced changes in multiple areas. 40% said fewer companies are now offering cyber insurance. Now, this is something that we've been seeing. So cyber insurance has become far less profitable for insurance providers over the last year. Payouts have increased. We've seen the increase in ransoms, and as a result, their payouts are going up faster than the income from premiums. And as a result, a number of insurance providers have decided to exit the cyber insurance market. This means that there's less cover to go round. There's less cover available for organizations to take. It also means that the insurers are then in the driving seat. It's a seller's market, and they are able to look to put in place procedures to reduce the risk, to make sure that they take on less complex, less risky clients. And we can see over half the respondents, 54%, said a higher level of cybersecurity has been needed to get cover. This is the insurance providers looking to reduce the likelihood of payout by requiring organizations to have a high level of cover before they provide insurance. We're also seeing policies getting more complex and the process taking longer. Plus, it's more expensive. A third of the respondents said that the policy is more expensive. Now, I actually think that if we run the survey next time, that number will be significantly higher. The big price hikes in cyber insurance really started in the second and third quarters of 2021. So many organizations won't have experienced the price increase when they did their renewal. In fact, I can share with you, Sophos' own cyber insurance premium has gone up 50% in the last year. So increasing cost of cyber insurance is something that I think we're going to see as an ongoing trend. However, this hardening of the cyber insurance market is driving many organizations, in fact, almost all organizations, 97% of organizations, to make changes to their cyber defenses. 64% have implemented new technologies and services to help better secure cyber insurance. Over half, 56%, have introduced training and education, and half have 52% have changed processes. So this hardening of the cyber insurance market, the increased challenges in getting cyber insurance, is driving many organizations to improve their cyber defenses. Now, the good news for anybody who has cyber insurance is that the insurance almost always pays out. Of those who were hit by ransomware and had cyber insurance that covered ransomware, 98% said the policy paid out. And this actually was even 100% in some countries: Switzerland, Mexico, Sweden, Belgium, Poland, Turkey, United Arab Emirates, India, and Singapore. They all had 100% payout rate. So let's have a look at what the cyber insurance paid. So in terms of cleanup costs, the cost to get the organization up and running again, these were paid by the insurer in over 3/4 of claims, 77% of claims. An increase from the 67% that was reported in our survey 2 years ago, when it was 67%. We're also seeing, though, a slight decrease in ransom payments. This time round, of those who said that cyber insurance paid out, 40% said the ransom was paid, which is a little bit down from the 44% in our 2019 study. So we've come to the end of the session. I hope you have found it informative. I hope you found it useful. I hope you have gained insights that are going to help you with your cyber defenses. We do have a PDF report that shares a lot of the data that I've covered today, including a lot of charts, so you can look and see how your country, your sector has performed. That is available from our website, sophos.com/ransomware 2022. So do get yourself a copy, and if you would like to discuss the findings or how Sophos can help, please speak with your Sophos team.
Wow, thank you, Sally, so much for joining us today. Although I have to echo, we got a comment from Amy saying both informative and scary, eek, which I think a lot of us agree with. Definitely a great way to kick off the Ecocast. I also loved this comment. We had a comment that I run Sophos for home. It's a great tool for deterring attacks. I had no idea so many nefarious characters were attempting to get at my home movies until I got Sophos. So that's also a great observation there. I can see that we already have a lot of awesome questions coming in. I wish that we had more time to dig into all of them. We are a bit short on time today with Sally, so we're going to wrap there. But the Sophos team is going to follow up with you. So if you asked a question today, you will get a response back. And in the meantime, I want to point out that we do have that poll question up for you all. We would love to get your feedback on any additional resources that you would like to explore from Sophos. So please do make sure to check out that poll. Share your thoughts with us. That feedback is so important. If you are looking for more information right away, click into that Handouts tab. You can actually download that white paper that Sally was just talking about, the state of ransomware in 2022. Some absolutely fascinating reading, so definitely snag that for later. And again, a big thank you to everyone who sent in a question and is answering the poll. I'm going to leave that poll up for just a moment longer because it is time for our very first prize drawing of the day. I hope you guys are excited. I am excited. I want to remind you one more time that all the winners must be in attendance at the live webinar today, and we will be in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap. So our very first winner of a $500 Amazon gift card today is Arlette Bacon of Georgia. Arlette Bacon of Georgia, you've won a $500 Amazon gift card. Congratulations to Arlette. Don't forget, there are still 2 more chances to win one of those $500 gift cards today, plus that best question card from each session. So make sure those questions are coming in. Okay, I'm going to move us right along in our Ecocast because up next, we are so excited to introduce Greg Foss, Principal Cloud Security Researcher at Lacework. That's right, guys. Greg is a researcher, so we know that we are in for both an awesome and informative presentation. Greg, let's do this.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us for today's Ecocast on ransomware. My name is Greg Foss from Lacework, and today I'd like to talk with you all about ransomware in the cloud, and specifically how that is different from what we see with more traditional sort of ransomware attacks. So as I said, I'm Greg Foss. I'm a cloud security researcher with the Lacework Labs division of Lacework. And essentially what that is the dedicated threat research division of the company, where we focus on tracking adversaries, performing incident response, improving security efficacy, and overall just trying to ensure that we're providing the best protection for our customers as possible. And so with that, let's go ahead and jump right in. So today we see a majority of companies have some sort of cloud footprint, whether they have their entire infrastructure hosted in the cloud or they have bits and pieces here and there. Majority of companies are using the cloud to some extent. Now, the big thing to understand with moving to the cloud is that this doesn't completely offset your organization's risk. There's such thing as the shared responsibility model. So the cloud computing provider will only be able to protect the infrastructure, where your systems live, where your serverless computing infrastructure resides, and things of that nature. But the thing is, with shared responsibility, the individuals using the cloud infrastructure are responsible for locking down the applications, ensuring configurations are set properly, making sure permissions are configured to restrict access as necessary, and everything kind of along those lines. So needless to say, it's not as easy as a lot of people make it out to be, where just moving to the cloud kind of takes all your bad feelings and turns them into good feelings. It's honestly, can be the opposite if you try and rush things and really don't take the time to do things properly, because this could open your organization up to quite a bit of risk. And that's essentially what I want to talk to you about today, a new scenario that we've kind of run through within our lab environment and have been playing around with that affects cloud very uniquely, especially compared to what we see with more traditional ransomware that goes and locks up individual assets, servers, and things like that. What we're going to look at is how this affects cloud and how adversaries can gain access and execute these types of attacks within cloud environments. So the way I wanted to highlight this is by using the MITRE ATT&CK matrix to compare against what we see with traditional ransomware, which is what you see right here, where we go through all of the different stages of the attack lifecycle for executing a full end-to-end ransomware attack. And this is kind of combined from various different ransomware samples that we've analyzed over the years. And the color codes, when you're reading these, you can see the green means that these are techniques that are going to be used within the environment in order for the ransomware attack to be successful. Now, some of these are not always used, which is these ones highlighted in yellow, and then ones that are completely skipped are going to be the ones in red. So what you'll notice when we compare against cloud ransomware is that there are a bunch of steps here that are not necessary for an adversary to pull off a successful ransomware attack. Whereas in traditional infrastructure, the adversary has to get in, they have to pivot, they have to find credentials, they have to move, they have to gather an inventory of all the assets, and have to be able to access those assets and execute their ransomware across those assets. Often cases exfiltrating that data before they even launch the ransomware attack itself. Whereas when you get into cloud, it's much different. There's a lot of ways that credentials can be acquired into the cloud management plane. And so a lot of this comes down to just that initial reconnaissance phase. And then once they have those credentials, they can gain initial access to the organization. And from there, they don't have to do all of these steps about like accessing other credentials, elevating privileges and things like that, unless the organization is well hardened. Then it might be something that they might have to do. But in general, they just want to do some discovery, see what they have access to, probably exfiltrate some of the data along the way, and then execute the ransomware itself. So the big aspect here, and the thing that I really want to drill in with this presentation, is the fact that configuration hardening goes a very long way. Not only can this make things very difficult for an adversary when they get into the cloud environment to execute this attack in a successful manner, but it also gives you more opportunities for detection along the way. Because if the adversary has to perform these steps, those are each additional detection points that you can leverage to pick up on this activity before they're able to get to that end stage, which is that impact component that we see at the very end there. So some of the configuration hardening that I want to talk to is, limiting the access of the accounts that are used for various services, like accessing S3 buckets, uploading logs, things like that. A lot of companies we talk to have just given blanket access to some of these credentials that could be stored in mobile applications and various other kind of places that could be accessible to someone outside of your circle of trust. So adding these kind of steps really goes a long way and gives you much more an opportunity to catch this attacker before they get to that really damaging stage of the attack. So let's walk through an end-to-end sort of example of how one of these attacks might work. So we're going to skip over recon right now because I'm actually going to visit this again shortly when we talk about internal reconnaissance. Now, assuming the adversary has already done some external reconnaissance, which we can't really see anyway, so we're not going to talk to that part, we're going to just kick it off with initial access. So what we're going to go with here is a remote code execution exploit in a vulnerable Lambda service. Now, this is actually something relatively common nowadays if the service is not configured properly. Now, as you can see here, this is just a general post request to this application. You can see they're making a post request to the application's API at a semicolon, and then they're adding this print environment variables attack here. Now, this is very powerful, very simple attack, but very powerful when you look at cloud infrastructure because of all the information that you're able to obtain from this attack, assuming the application is configured insecurely. So just by this simple attack here, we're able to get the AWS session token, AWS secret access key, and the AWS access key ID. With this information, we can plug this into the AWS command line, and we can execute this attack. And basically, you've already skipped over a bunch of the steps necessary to gain that initial access and do all the other things that you would have to do in a traditional sort of attack on traditional infrastructure. We already essentially have access to the management plane at whatever level of access this account is configured at. So next, we're going to go back to recon, because now that we have this account, we want to see what we can do with it. So what they're going to do is use the AWS command line interface and check the identity access management configurations to list users, list roles, list policies, list groups. So, these are going to be typical steps that an adversary might take if they come across these types of credentials. Now, right here is where you can start with your hardening, right? If this user is not able to index any of these kind of components with privileges of this token, then they're going to have to find a way to elevate their privileges, and they're going to be very loud. And also, these activities will trigger access denied events, which could be used to detect the activity. But assuming they're able to index this, which is unfortunately very common, they're going to take it the next step, and they're going to start targeting a specific account that may have elevated access or may have access to something that could be more valuable to them. So what they're going to do now is target this AD administrator user. They're going to list the groups for this user, list the user policies, attached user policies, signing certs, public keys, and all sorts of other kind of components. Now, this could vary significantly. These are just some examples that someone might go after. But really quickly, you can see that they have a general understanding of the infrastructure, they have a listing of accounts, and they might know where to go next in terms of their targeting. So in terms of detection potential, as we were talking about, if you are blocking these requests, all of a sudden we have these denied events, which are going to be eventable items. So as you can see, if we look at the flow of this attack, we can see these API calls coming in from this McDuck user. We can see what regions they're using, and we can see the services they're querying. We can see these read access attempts, and we can see all of these are access denied. Now, this is key to pick up on, because if you don't see this activity commonly, or someone is all of a sudden doing this, this is something that should be a dead giveaway that, hey, something's up, maybe we should start investigating this. So next, what we want to do is take a look at discovery. So, essentially the next step from that initial reconnaissance is start doing more detailed discovery of targets that they might want to hit in terms of either exfiltration or impact. And so down here we can see they're going to investigate S3. So they're going to list all the available S3 objects, common prefixes associated with those, and then recursively list any of the contents from a bucket that they might want to target. Next, they're going to describe any EC2 instances. Those could be great targets if they want to go drop general ransomware on those targets. They're going to list any Lambda functions. Those could be something they could use to add backdoor access. They could leverage the Lambda service itself for additional attacks. A lot of potential could happen there. They're also going to check the RDS database to discover any database instances that might have credentials, user information, anything else that might be valuable and could be sold and used later for them to make profit from this attack. They're also going to look at any load balancers so they can understand how your application infrastructure is configured should they need to attack other services or go after different parts of the infrastructure. Now, this activity right here, the more of this they do, the louder it's going to be. So if we take a look at this attack flow again, we can zero in on this by highlighting what location they're coming from, and then figuring out what services they're targeting. And also, a lot of these are going to query access denied events, especially if they're using something like an open source tool such as Paku, which is basically a AWS attack kind of platform that allows you to do a lot of this enumeration automatically. And a lot of adversaries are using tools such as that to do these sorts of attacks, which will ultimately result in someone hitting all of these kind of services at once, often looking at tons of different regions, various things that don't happen all the time. So picking up on these differences is going to be very key to detecting this activity before they're able to actually perform anything damaging in the environment. And as you can see, all of these events where they're actually trying to poke at things that they don't have access to. So each kind of one of these should be triggering multiple events at this stage. So you should be able to start locking things down, assuming this activity is caught in time. Now, the next thing they want to do is exfiltrate data. Most ransomware groups that we follow do this exfiltration component now, commonly referred to as double extortion, where they will steal the data in the event that the target is able to recover from the ransomware attack. They want to ensure that they're going to profit from this attack. So when they have copies of these files themselves, especially very sensitive content such as source code, database content, user information, anything that would be damaging or considered very valuable to the company are things that they're going to want to take, so that, assuming you're able to restore from backup and things like that, well, now they have another angle to go after the target where if you don't pay the ransom to decrypt the content, well, then they're going to threaten to release this content online. So very common attack. And so right here, we're just seeing, example, they're just copying a sensitive file from an S3 bucket, just to kind of show what this looks like. Now, I tend to lump these together when we're talking about cloud, because, that collection and component kind of goes hand in hand with the exfiltration. So when they're viewing this content and investigating it, they're also simultaneously exfiltrating it. Now, if they're able to perform all of this without triggering any alarms within the environment, and they're able to get to the point where they can actually execute a ransomware attack on these services, well, now it gets to the very damaging component. And especially when we're looking at ransomware, the example here, we're targeting S3. And so what we're doing is going in, wiping out any backups that might be existing of this data. Now, that's assuming that there's not cold storage and some of the more persistent ways that you're able to store some of this data. This is only able to affect kind of the hot storage that's accessible. But essentially what we're looking at here is this very simple attack. It uses 7 AWS command line commands, and it can be executed over massive directories in about 30 seconds from our testing. But essentially what this does is it uses a customer managed key, which makes it so Amazon itself will never actually see this key. It does the encryption using your local AWS CLI interaction with the S3 bucket itself. So it takes all of the data from within the S3 bucket, and it basically copies the data, encrypts it, and then moves it to a new S3 bucket. And so it does all this pretty quickly. And so essentially what you're left with is encrypted contents. And now you have this, the only thing that the victim is able to access is actually the ransomware node itself. So pretty devastating attack. This is a proof of concept that my coworker Michael Bentley came up with, and is still a very effective tactic, and one that we fortunately haven't seen adversaries start leveraging. But it is something, as we see more and more adversaries figure out and understand how to actually attack cloud infrastructure more effectively than just deploying crypto miners and things like that, is something we imagine we'll see, not just this type of attack, but variants of it that affect various other services as well. And so that's why, everything we've really focused on here comes down to having the early detection as much as possible. That hardening of the configuration, and really focus on being ahead of things and understanding your infrastructure goes a very long way to preventing this type of activity. And the more hoops that you're going to force an adversary who may come across credentials from one way or another to jump through, the more likely you are to have this be a successful prevention before they get to that point of impact. So we always refer to this as getting to the left of bang, because the right of bang is going to be that fallout. That's the incident response, the recovery. All of a sudden you're figuring out, how do you obtain cryptocurrency to pay this ransom, or how do you recover from backups? And all of the things that you don't want to deal with, you really want to try and detect these things early, get ahead of them so you can prevent these attacks in the first place. And that really comes down to having a good security posture and understanding of your infrastructure and tooling in place to have visibility into these attacks. So in general, We just want to highlight it really comes down to proactive security. You want to have good patch management and vulnerability management. Understand that this is all about defense in depth. There's no silver bullet here. There's no one tool that's going to kind of fix everything. You also want to have playbooks and incident response plans, run tabletop exercises, and make sure that those of your employees understand how they should respond should a event like this take place. And there are various other services you can leverage to pick up on sort of other attacks that we didn't have time to cover in here. But utilization limits and guardrails around billing are another real good way to catch certain attacks, especially for the crypto mining sort of side of things. You also want to be rotating keys. That's something we proactively check within our product. There's various ways to do this, but you want to be doing this between 30 and 90 days for various services. And you want to make sure that to access the cloud management plane, you have multi-factor authentication in place. And you want to train your users to use that, not just within your company, but for all of their personal aspects as well. Because we've seen a lot of these cloud attacks affecting personal cloud accounts as well that can be very costly for individuals. And now everything we talked about, you want to have an alert pipeline and ability to respond. So you want to have this piped into Slack, you want to have this piped into your SIM, maybe within Lacework or some similar sort of product. Either way, you want to know about these activities and have an ability to respond when these needs arise. And communicate this with your team. Ensure that those that need access have that visibility. And compliance is always kind of one of the cornerstones here within cloud security, because most incidents that my team investigates actually do come down to compliance misconfigurations. And so, all of this together is just a very high level, some items that you can do to better protect your cloud infrastructure. But essentially, as a whole, get ahead of it, understand where your assets are, and work to ensure that everyone on your team kind of knows what to do should something like this take place, so you can stop it before it gets to that point of impact. So with that, thank you all very much for joining us today. I'll be available for questions if you all want to reach out and have anything you want more information on. You can either chat through here or feel free to send me an email, or I have my Twitter up there as well. And definitely follow the Lacework Labs team as well. And with that, thank you all very much.
Oh man, thank you, Greg, for just an awesome presentation. I was laughing at the McDuck in your demo. And great. I love that. I love when people sneak in little winks. All right. Well, I think we've got a lot of great questions coming in, Greg. So before we jump into those, I do just want to point out that we have a poll back up for you. We do want to know what further information you would like to get from Lacework. This feedback is very important. Please do take a moment and fill that out. While you're doing that, Greg and I are going to jump into some of these awesome questions. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right. All right. I want to start with this one from Raju. He's asking, are there ransomware simulation sites or services that organizations leverage to get a gauge on effectiveness of protection mechanisms in place?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because it's a hard thing to simulate safely. So there are a lot of companies that do attack simulation. Like Attack IQ is a really good one. Simulate, another kind of company that does this. But the thing too is, like, a lot of them will do this in a safe manner. You really don't want to be executing real ransomware unless you have a very locked down, controlled environment to test this in, just because they tend to do a lot more things than just that encryption component. And if you don't have it walled off appropriately, they could spread to other systems. They could perform more intrusive sort of attacks, that could end up, somewhere else entirely in the company. So you just want to be real careful when using real ransomware. And that's why, we always try and go with the safer sort of solutions that are out there with some of the commercial offerings. Of course, the ransomware example I showed here was just one we wrote internally. And it's one, fortunately, we haven't seen adversaries leverage yet. But, you know, it's one of those where we think it's only a matter of time before they figure out kind of how impactful and easy that is to do. But yeah, so good question. I mean, there's a lot of sources out there. Just be careful with any real ransomware you might be detonating within your environment.
Yeah, that's important. All right, this one's from Peter here. We are a vendor in the Amazon Marketplace. Do we need to be concerned about our access to Amazon's AWS services that we have access to?
Yeah, it's another good question. I mean, you know, any of those credentials, you want to be very careful, like how they might be shared, who might have access to those, what privileges they have. You know, one of the big areas we find a lot of these credentials is, you know, uploaded to things like VirusTotal. They could be in flat files that get pushed up there. Oftentimes within GitHub commits, we found AWS credentials there. But most prominently, we see them in mobile applications. You can just reverse the mobile application and pull these credentials out. And of course, you know, the web application example we showed here. But really, you know, when you're looking at, you know, being essentially a vendor within the AWS Marketplace, you do have to be concerned with that because that affects your business. Should someone come across those credentials and misuse them, it's, you know, definitely something to be cognizant of and really have plans around, you know, what you're going to do should those get leaked or come into the wrong hands.
All right, this one's kind of a long one, so I'm gonna read this out. This is from Stephen. The ransomware that is out there, are these attackers huge money-making companies that have built enterprises in ransomware? And kind of as a follow-up, is Lacework aware of all the different software out there that surrounds, quote-unquote, launching attacks? As I understand, the software is sold to companies to launch and maintain their ransomware attacking companies.
Yeah, so you know, that's definitely one of the real interesting things here, right? I think the best example of this that shows the structure of these ransomware groups is Conti, and that's because recently Conti, they had a little infighting due to the conflict in Ukraine, where they had some members in Russia, some members in Ukraine, and they obviously didn't see on eye to eye on ideals there. But so what happened is they ended up, one of the Ukrainian members ended up basically dumping the chat logs for everything Conti was doing, which gave all of us in the security research community a real good understanding of their organizational structures. They did have a CEO type at the top who was kind of running things. They had directors and managers who ran different kind of parts of the business, so to speak. And then they also had workers who would come in and do the actual ransomware attacks. They even had a very good training manual for teaching people how to execute ransomware attacks. And they even had a whole hiring and recruiting department. So, I mean, it really did operate like a full company. And, you know, that's what we're seeing with a lot of these ransomware groups. They make a lot of money, too. I think that it was in the billions of what Conti alone had pulled in during their time of operating. But, you know, getting to your second point of the question on launching attacks, that's a key detection point for us. We really look at, you know, how do we pick up on someone is in the environment, they are performing sort of certain post-exploitation activities or, you know, ideally catching that initial exploitation component itself. And so, you know, that's something like, you know, we try and look at in terms of detecting that. And I don't know if that truly answers what you're asking there, but that's kind of our standpoint on that one.
Well, and if not, Stephen, please feel free to post a follow-up. And I think Greg is going to stick around a little bit on live chat, and then also Lacework can obviously follow up with you afterwards. And I so wish we could keep going with this, Greg, because it's just a fascinating conversation. But we do need to leave it there. Before we let you go, for anyone out there that is looking to get more information, you know, you mentioned a few ways to get in touch. Can you just remind the folks in the audience if they, you know, either want to get started or they want to ask those questions, what is their first step?
Oh, with Lacework? Yeah, just feel free
for jumping in, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Just you know, feel free to reach out to us. You know, I have my contact info in the slides there. You know, if there's more information we can provide, we did release a cloud threat report recently. You know, happy to share that, which dives into some more details around, you know, just what we talked about today. But yeah, in general, you know, feel free to reach out to us. We're always happy to help, you know, with your, you know, cloud security posture and, you know, helping with doing what we can to better protect your environment.
Well, that's awesome. And besides getting the Scrooge McDuck theme song stuck in my head, this has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Greg, for an incredible conversation and for joining us to answer some questions today.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, big thanks to everyone who submitted a question and who has answered that poll there. Again, that feedback is really important. If you are looking for more reading right away on Lacework, head on over to that Handouts tab. You can actually download the Ransomware Rising, a look at how to battle ransomware in the cloud. There's some really interesting info in there, so definitely go click and download. But for now, let's keep rolling with these awesome sessions here. Up next, we are so excited to welcome Diana Salazar, Product and Solutions Marketing Manager at Quantum. Thank you for being here with us today, Diana. The platform is all yours.
Thank you so much for having me. And thanks, everybody. So as just said, Diana Salazar, Product and Solutions Marketing Manager. I work with the Data and Cyber Protection Division of our organization. And I'm excited today to bring you some information on a little bit about Quantum and a little bit about what we do in terms of helping customers prevent and recover their data from ransomware. So let's dive right into it. I'm going to do a quick introduction on Quantum. I have a feeling a lot of folks here may not know or have heard of Quantum, but we are the leader in end-to-end solutions for video and unstructured data. So we know data, we've been around for quite a while, and we understand that, about the shift that's happening and the role that data is having in digital transformation. A lot of the data is unstructured, a lot of the data is video and images, and all of this data is being targeted by cyber attacks and these vicious hackers that are going after the one thing that is so valuable to your organization and to thousands of organizations across the world. And so these challenges and opportunities are not only for us as an organization, but they also present a challenge and an opportunity for those hackers that want to attack, that want that data because they know they can sell it for millions of dollars. They want your secrets. They want to be able to put it on that black market and just sell it to the highest bidder and expose your organization because they know you're going to pay. They know that you're going to try to resolve it as quick and as painless as possible. So they know that money is there. And so I'm going to jump into some quick market statistics. I know you've been listening into some of the other organizations on here to talk a little bit about that. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but it's good to look at it again because I think it's very important to see not only what your peers are doing, but to see what is happening in the world of cybersecurity and cyber attacks and how organizations are responding. And in this slide, I just want to take a look real quick. I mean, you've seen quite a bit of this already, but what really called my attention is, right in the middle, bottom of the middle there, 57% of organizations didn't have a comprehensive strategy. That blows my mind because in the environment that we find ourselves in right now, it is extremely important to have a comprehensive strategy. And security isn't something that you can just buy with one product or a feature or any one thing in isolation. Security has to be, or it's going to be best described as an approach, a way of doing things, even an attitude or a state of mind. And so we've got to begin to leverage the right tools and the techniques in the right ways and in the right time, and be constantly evaluating, methods to improve our security. Because guess what? You guys know adversaries are leveraging the latest tools. They're leveraging artificial intelligence. They're leveraging machine learning. They're leveraging every possible tool out there to be able to penetrate your environment and get the most of it. So we've got to start thinking about that more and more to be able to, take a stand in this fight. The other thing I want to point out is that in this report, and you can look at any report, there's various reports out there, that you can leverage. But in this particular report, they said that 63% of the respondents say that there's a crisis because they're dealing with the crisis of trusting in legacy IT vendors because they're being hacked. There are, whether it's a third-party vendor, whether it's a third party in general, whatever it is, whether it's the hackers that are coming in through the supply chain, they are accessing your environment. And so this is alarming. And, we understand that the downtime associated with these events is increasing. The last report I saw, it was over 200% year over year, and it's getting tougher and tougher to recover from. And we know that it is very costly to recover from an event. The most another recent report I just read is the recent strain that is attacking or is targeting virtual machines. It is I believe the latest variant that looks to encrypt virtual machines present inside the volumes of a folder, and these are on ESXi based systems and servers. So where quantum comes in terms of a solution is we want to help you put those tools in place on the back end. You may have, like I said earlier, you may have all these wonderful tools to protect you on the front end, and you can close the front door, but are you closing the back door, and are you leveraging all the tools available to be able to restore should your environment or should your data be compromised? And so we want to, definitely look at what leading security organizations are recommending and what they're saying. And what we know is that they are all recommending an offline copy. Super important, because as long as data is connected to the network, it's just a matter of time. And so we want to help you. We want to offer the tools that are available from a quantum perspective and show you and provide those insights that we have learned along the way. And you'll find some very interesting points that we have to share with you. Now, we all know about the regulations, especially if you're in the finance sector, the government sector, in health, even in education. My goodness, we just saw, I believe it was about a month ago, colleges shutting down because of the lack of, having those tools and the necessary processes in place to be able to protect their systems, their environment. And so because of these, there's a lot of lawsuits happening because it's going up to these decision makers, the board. If you as an IT director or wherever you're at in your organization, you bring this information over to your board of directors and they decide, I don't want to spend money on that, then guess what? They're going to be liable. They're going to be liable with hefty fines and charged with negligibility. And there's many repercussions for them. And it's at the end of the day, it's going to hurt shareholders. So, we want to make sure that of all the tools that are available, because otherwise your organization is not only going to incur great costs, but the reputation is going to be hurt. Your customers are going to be hurt. It's going to cost a lot more than just paying extortion fees or, having your cyber insurance pay. All of that has a lot to do. And so we want to take a look at that. Because paying is a risky business, and we all know of the mandates coming from Washington and how important it is to have that offline copy. So let me jump right into the quantum tools that are available to you. We offer a multi-layer approach to prevention and recovery from ransomware. And let me start off with a 10,000 view look at some of these solutions. So we want to help you choose the best cybersecurity approach, and we advocate for that, golden backup rule, which is having 3 copies of your data, 2 forms of media, 1 copy should be offline, and 1 copy should be off-site. And we want to ensure that our customers have the ultra-resilient approach to backing up their data and being able to recover and archive the data, because it's all vital to protect your business and allow you to have that business continuity in the event of an event. So, lately you've heard that it's so important to do weekly and daily backup, as often as possible, because these will come into play to help your organization recover in the case of an event that compromises your data. And so the quantum solutions are designed with strong authentication and authorization, encryption in motion, and forms of encryption at rest that makes them suitable to use by any organization in pretty much any industry. And so what you can see in this slide is that we play with pretty much every application out there, and we play nice with them. And so you can have pretty much any backup or archive application, and you can choose which method of recovery you want, or method of protection for that matter. If you're looking for nearline storage and have sort of like a private cloud on site, then you would take a look at active scale object storage, because that one has the versioning and the object locking to protect against ransomware. If you want an ultra-fast, high-speed backup replication with replication appliance, then you'd want to look at the DXi backup appliance that has AES 256-bit encryption, and it also comes with a feature which I'll dive into a little bit later called Secure Snapshot, and that protects you from a ransomware attack. Again, I'll go into detail, but Quantum's most unique feature to protect data from cyber threats is the Quantum Tape Library, which is at the bottom there where you see scalar tape storage. It is the lowest cost. It is the most secure tape in the market today, and it can be used for a long-term archive. It's super cyber resilient, and I'll show you a video of what that looks like. But this feature in the Scalar Tape Library, now you might think, well, there's many libraries out there. Well, I don't want to keep it. It's going to take too long to recover. It is not meant for you to recover as quick as possible, but it does give you the assurance that your data will be recoverable should your high-speed backup appliance or your nearline storage or any other primary storage that you might have on site fail. If it gets compromised, that you know that your scalar tape will have the data available. And so that's why we are encouraging that backups be done to the tape, or as often as possible, as often as feasible, because this method of or a solution, there's a feature called ransom block, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on that. That creates a physical barrier and a separation even from the robot inside the library. That's going to protect your backups and the archives. However, you can still inventory the tapes. So there's a high performance tier where you can instantly restore your backup data. There's an active archive tier for long-term retention and compliance. And then there's a lowest cost retention tier for air gapping with tape storage. All of these solutions we'll go into a little bit more detail, but it does give you the assurance that your data will be protected and you will be able to recover from ransomware. So moving on here to the next slide, just a little bit more detail on active scale optic storage. It is software and architecture that is built on top of the concept of immutability. It is very just the technology, the way the objects are written, and how it's got all the security features to help you protect it. It's simple to manage, always available, extremely durable. It's got very low TCO, but the most important, I think, here for this particular moment that we are discussing is the features to protect against malware or other malware. It has a small attack surface. The data can only be written or accessed by API. that you've got immutability, you can version your data, you can encrypt buckets and objects to prevent deletion, to prevent anybody overwriting the data. Because of the versioning, it's going to provide multiple point-in-time copies. The data is encrypted. So as long as, this is intended for secondary offsite data copies with ransomware protection, you are going to be amazed at what this solution can do to help you protect and restore. And then just to dive a little bit further into this, it also comes with an S3 object lock support, and which basically makes your objects undeletable and unmodifiable for a specified period of time. It's going to help you protect it against rogue actors, accidental deletion. It keeps history of data sets and records, and it's just a pretty cool product if you are interested in sort of having like a mini private cloud in your environment, then this is one of the ways that you can go. And then finally, subject, ActiveScale was built for data protection and data recoverability. It's got multiple tremendous amounts of features that you will be able to see, and we just talked about. I'm not going to go and repeat all of this, but again, this protects against any kind of malicious deletes, encryption, or activity. Great protection against ransomware, and it's extremely safe. It keeps your data extremely safe with object log, also known as worm. It can be added to your workflow, and then you just place a lock on the objects, and nobody, not even the system administrator, can delete that object. So it's a great solution if this is something that you are interested in. Now I want to go into the tier for for fast backup, and I just want to quickly show you this picture and how these DXI backup appliances have been, being used a lot more. Again, I started out this session by saying, and maybe a lot of you guys don't know about Quantum, but we've been around for a long time, and this DXI solution has been around. We are actually providing great protection with a feature called Secure Snapshot, and that's the one slide I want to go to next. This is a solution that enables you to store your data and restore it via Secure Snapshot. How this protects your data, it is basically what we call a first level of defense against ransomware. Why? Because this is where you'll be able to push your data through, and in case of an event, then you'll be able to recover very, very quickly, within minutes. There's no data path access. The attacker will not be able to use generic attacks. They can't use the DXI GUI or the REST API to delete any snapshots. You basically just take that snapshot, you put it in a non-network addressable location. It is kept on for a specified period of time, and then it is automatically deleted. You are going to set your policies, and you are going to decide how long you are going to keep it. You control where the data is going to reside, how long you're going to have it, and the deletion of that data happens automatically. So hopefully that makes sense for everyone. I want to jump in and talk about the scalar tape libraries, because that is one thing that is being recommended by leading security organizations like the FBI and across the world. And we're going to talk a little bit about the scalar security framework, but want to show you just an image of those scalar tape libraries. We have from entry level to the enterprise, and all of these are have all the features that we are going to talk about here in a little bit. Now, I don't want to bore you with, what tape does, and I understand that a lot of you have used tape in the past and you ditched it because you wanted something newer, something, a little bit better. Again, the way to use a tape library is not to quickly recover, because it's going to take a little bit longer than disk. where you want tape is on the back end as a tertiary copy should your high-speed disk be compromised. This is where you'll be able, we say, you'll be able to sleep better knowing that your data will be recoverable from a tape library. So to put things in a little bit of perspective here, with this solution, we are at the 7 hyperscalers and web scale customers. All right, we have around 3 million tapes under management, over 30 exabytes deployed, and about, this is an interesting stat, about 1.65 million miles of tape. But the reason I want to share this information is because the hyperscalers are leveraging tape. And we think they're doing it for security reasons to protect against cyber attacks. And we think that that's a valuable piece of information and insight that we can provide, all these other users out there or all these other organizations that are not necessarily hyperscalers. But they have made, in fact, we partnered with one of them, one of the largest hyperscalers, to create our most unique feature in the tape library, which I'm going to show you in a little bit. But it's just amazing what they're doing and the ideas that they have, and we want to definitely show you a little bit about that. But just to put things into perspective here, about that 1.65 million miles of tape that we are shipping, and have in existence, that's like 3 times to the moon and back. That's just an interesting tidbit. And that's because the hyperscalers are leveraging a lot more tape. These are the biggest archives that have ever been built, and we support them with a cloud-based tool so that we can partner with them in making sure that all their data is secure, that the systems are working great. We help manage these massive environments. And, notably, we are also, started to push down beyond just those hyperscalers. So I think that you're going to find this pretty interesting. Now, let me dive deep into the tape. So we all know tape is inherently secure because of separation, right? There's still some risk, though, that, a hacker might get a hold of that robot because the tape library is still going to be connected and it's still going to kind of be online, right? And where you see those arrows pointing to is that separation from the actual drive and the tape. There's an air gap, and so it protects them from being compromised. However, should a hacker get a hold of that, they want your data, and they're not going to stop until they get it, then that's where, this comes in. If somebody's totally determined to go after your data, they're going to find a way to hack it, and they're going to find a way to access that robot because they know that the jewels of the organization are in your backup copies. And so where we started, in terms of the layers of security, where we started was in providing a vault inside the tape library. And so the application writes your backups to the tape as normal, but then the administrator is going to configure a partition that we call the active vault partition, and you're going to set export redirect policies. And what that does is the library will use that policy, export the tapes, and it's going to seem like from the standpoint of the backup application, it's going to think that those tapes are going to be exported into a shelf somewhere, and they're going to be sent to another place, or just put in the shelf in your data center. But what's really going to happen, the robot is going to take hold of that exported tape, and it's going to place it into the AV partition. But again, the application is going to think that those tapes have been taken out of the library. The tapes are going to reside on a shelf inside the library. There is no network connectivity, and they can only be retrieved from the vault using, direct commands by the administrator. So what the Active Vault solution did it improved on that air gap that is already provided by tape. In addition, we provide multi-factor authentication, so the admin accounts are protected from a rogue employee or anything like that. So
Diana, I'm
is,
so sorry, Diana, to interrupt because you're on an amazing roll here and such great information. We're just right about at time here, so I just wanted to give you a quick heads up if we can wrap up, and we'll maybe get to a question or two.
Perfect, thank you. So we
Absolutely.
We solved the problem of having to deal with tapes, and we have increasing layers of security. I want to talk about ransom block because that's the most unique. This is the administrator is going to initiate the ransom block, which ejects the magazine to create a physical barrier. And if we can go into that here, if you blink, you're going to miss it. But this is the ransom block feature. You saw that? It's going to eject the magazine, and however you can still inventory the tapes. So that's all it's going to do. It's very basic, but it is the most unique feature. This is a feature that we partner with those big hyperscalers, and all you do is push it back in. And that's it. That's all you do. Please take a look at the comprehensive security framework for more details.
I love that. Thank you so much. And we just have so many questions coming in, which we will not have time to get to, but I'm just going to remind everyone that Diana, I don't know if you have a little time to stick around and answer some questions on live chat. The team will also be following up, so you will hear back from Quantum. Clearly amazing content. We have to get you back for an hour sometime, Diana. Just so much good info. I have put that poll up. I do want to point that out to everyone. Please do take a minute right now. Let us know what else you would like to hear from Quantum. Do take a minute to answer that. And real quick, and like I said, we'll have to be a bit short on Q&A, but I do want to ask this question we got from Ned because I think it's an important one. Can you tell us, in your mind, Diana, what makes Quantum unique? What makes you stand out?
Well, we have been in protecting data for a very long time, for decades, and we've only improved on the protection and the recovery aspect of it, because of issues like ransomware. And we have unique features, particularly on our tape system, that nobody in the market has. That ransom block feature, we highly recommend you look at it. It's very basic, but it is something that we partner with the hyperscalers to ensure that the data is protected. And if they want this, I would imagine that everybody should learn about it, at least to get an idea how to basically sleep better at night, knowing that your data is going to be recoverable.
I love that. That's what we're going for, right? Is peace of mind and sleeping through the night.
Right.
I do want to let you know that you got a couple of high fives from the team. People asking you to come back and do a full session in our audience today. So, Diana, I think we'll have to bring you back. Before we let you go, however, for those that are out there that are ready to jump in, that either want to learn more about Quantum or are ready to actually take that step, what do you recommend that they do? Where do they get started?
You can go to our website, www.quantum.com, and actually the best way is to probably just go into that chat box, get some, put your details in there, and one of our Quantum sales rep will contact you with additional information.
That's awesome. I love that. Yes. So if there's something you want to know right away, a follow-up that you'd like, make sure that you post that in the question tab. That's an easy, direct way that's going to go right to the team, and then you'll hear back. Diana, again, thank you so much. I'm so sorry we had to cut it short. I could listen to you talk all day, but we'll hopefully see you again soon.
Thank you so much.
All right, and thanks to everyone who did ask an amazing question. You will hear back from the Quantum team, so please do keep those coming. Thanks to everyone who filled out the poll. I'm just going to leave that up a second longer since we didn't have much time to fill that out now. And while we do that, you guessed it, it's time for our second prize drawing. So we do have another $500 Amazon gift card for someone awesome in our audience today. Again, I'm going to give you that reminder. All winners must be in attendance at the live webinar, and we will be in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap today. So the lucky winner, number 2 of a $500 Amazon gift card today is Sean Law of Georgia. Sean Law of Georgia. Congratulations to Sean. Don't forget, we still have one more chance to win that big prize. Plus, we have the best question card from each session, so that is still coming. Okay, and up next, is going to move us along in our presentation here. We have another amazing session for you. I'm so excited to introduce Tracy Ator, Inside Sales Engineer at Rubrik. Tracy, I know you also have a lot of great info to cover, so without any further ado, I will hand the mic on over.
Hey everyone, so it's always a pleasure doing these, so thank you for having me. My name is Tracy Ator, and I am one of the inside sales engineers at Rubrik covering mid-market accounts. And today I'll be sharing with you a lot of different ways we do backup and recovery with DR as a focus. So should you be in the planning phase or revamping a current strategy as it relates to disaster recovery, you'll know what options you have to consider with Rubrik for best practice. But before we get into it, first I would like to level set on what exactly Rubrik is in case there are some here that have not explored us yet for backup and recovery for their on-prem workloads. So when Rubrik came to market, our founders wanted it to be easy to use as something like Facebook, right? So it's very simple to set up and get running right out of the gates. What you'll be getting straight out of the box is a 2U 4-node hyperconverged appliance, which we also refer to as a brick. Each node inside the brick does have a 10 or 25 gig port for data, optional 10 gigs for management, a hybrid disk architecture, so you'll have SSDs for the performance, hard disk drives for the storage itself, and each brick can sustain a considerable amount of failures. So figure I could lose multiple drives and we could just keep on moving since everything is self-correcting and healing due to our erasure coding protection scheme. And the nice thing about all of this is that you do not have to do any additional hardware shopping and manage, a bunch of different components. Since with us, you'll be getting the software, which is the magic, all of the storage and the compute in this 2U appliance. Should you need more storage later down the road, you simply add another appliance size to fit another 3 to 5 years of data growth that we're backing up. It locks arms with the existing brick and then you get more of everything, right? So it's similar to vSAN. In the automation layer here, we have an API first approach and we can integrate seamlessly within most orchestration tools your security operation team's prior to using. We also have pre-built script templates available at build.rubrik.com. If you want to check out some of our integrations with ServiceNow, Terraform, Ansible, you can. You don't have to be a customer already to take a peek at that. And then we also integrate seamlessly using APIs with VMware, Hyper-V, and Nutanix. So once you have spent the 20 minutes racking and stacking the appliance, bootstrapping the nodes into the environment, you will then simply enter in your fully qualified credentials into the appliance. And then Rubrik's API will go out. What that will do is it'll go out and auto-discover all your VMs and will auto-inventory them as well. So basically everything you do in CDM, it's making an API call in the background. Then once those VMs are discovered, we give you the opportunity to assign them an SLA policy. That SLA policy is where you define how often you want Rubrik to take snapshots and how long you want to keep those snapshots. And we don't manage any backup jobs at all over here. Everything is done completely through that declarative policy approach. And then in addition to just protecting VMs, we could also back up physical machines, databases like SQL and Oracle, NAS environments, and give you the ability to archive data for long-term retention to any S3 compatible object store, NFS targets, and tape as well under the same SLA policy through a single pane of glass. Another really cool thing that we do here is we make it really easy to search within our UI for files or VMs using a Google-like search functionality. So you don't have to sort through a bunch of files and folders to retrieve these items. It's not a bolt-on either. That just comes with the appliance and the software and things like that. And then finally, where cloud data management really comes into play, we did want to make it really easy for customers to embrace their cloud journeys, whether you're born in the cloud or just beginning. And we really want you to take advantage of the cost economics that come with that. So you don't have to buy 7 years of Rubrik hardware if you don't want to. And then, essentially we'll help extend you to the cloud, whether again, if it's short-term or long-term archival purposes, or if you already have existing cloud workloads in place, we have something for that too. So everything's seamless there. So when it comes to immutability and peace of mind, I think we could all agree here that the million-dollar question these days when shopping for a new backup vendor is how secure are you, right? So to help drive the point home here in summary, how secure we are. You can see we're pretty much a bunker in a box. And I can say that with confidence because we have never had a customer who was not able to recover their data backed up by Rubrik. We've never been compromised. So sitting at the foundation of who we are and what makes us unique is our proprietary distributed file system that we named Atlas. And the way that's designed is that any backup data getting written to it is never exposed to external clients through insecure browsable methods or protocols where viruses are known to propagate, such as NFS or SMB, which is still often seen in a lot of legacy architecture today. And any operation taking place on top of that data needs to be authenticated through APIs and appropriate credentials. Then upon ingest, it fingerprints all the data, and then those fingerprints are stored along with that data to ensure once it's been written, that data cannot be modified, changed, or deleted in that file system. On top of this all, data is encrypted in flight using TLS 1.2, and then at rest we use AES 256-bit encryption, and that's starting day one, which eliminates the need for proxies or a master server. There's also no direct shell access, just a command line interface just to interact with the API itself. And you can leverage things like two-factor authentication using an authenticator app on your phone, like a Microsoft, Google, or Okta. And then we also have built-in time-based one-time passwords that you can leverage, and then RBAC controls and retention lock SLAs. Retention lock SLAs prevent the premature deletion of snapshots, either from malicious or accidental means. And it also requires quite a bit of human intervention. So if you want to learn more, definitely reach out to me on that. So if you're like most customers, surely you've already invested in a bunch of perimeter solutions to secure your data, whether that's endpoint security, firewalls, etc. But what we found is that you simply can't build thick enough walls, and you need to assume that the bad guys are going to get in, right? So from the inception of Rubrik, we've always put data security front and center with a combination of our immutable file system, which I described here, and these zero trust controls. This can most certainly help you achieve the same security outcomes as a physical air gap. So let's talk DR. First, we all know it's complex. Most environments they're dynamic. They need to evolve with ever-changing threat landscape, whether that's ransomware, outages, or environmental factors. It's likely difficult to keep up with a DR plan, especially as your data grows at the same time. Being such a fragile process when it comes to instituting particular dependencies, how can one truly ensure everything comes back online in a healthy state, and in what order? And how often should this be tested? And then next, it's expensive. It becomes especially challenging here because this means possibly leaving out tier 2 and tier 3 applications out of your DR plans. And then finally, it's siloed. Traditionally, disaster recovery is separate from backup, thus making operational management complicated. DR tools are introduced outside of existing data protection infrastructure and simply poses visibility and extra management challenges, right? So that is where Rubrik comes in, and how we not only back up your data, but we provide you with a couple different ways to execute on a DR strategy from a single pane of glass. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And then, okay, here we go. So first and foremost, and very basic, so I don't want to spend a lot of time here, we do support simple replication in a push-pull fashion as it relates to going from the source into a target located at a secondary site for DR. We could also support bidirectional replication and hub-spoke topologies. The requirement here is that an on-prem Rubrik appliance would need to be leveraged at each site for this to take place. For those with smaller remote sites, we do have a virtual appliance available that we call Rubrik Edge. What that is, you just deploy that inside your already virtualized infrastructure from an OVA template that our support team provides, and then you could leverage replication either back to the main headquarters where a primary brick resides, or you can archive directly to the cloud. And then the way that we enable this type of replication out of the box, it could be done through two ways. The communication between the Rubrik clusters can be through using a private network, or by using network address translation. And then once that has been set up within the UI, you'll be able to assign SLA policies to your workloads, which define not only how often you want to take snapshots and keep them, but also you'll be able to enable replication to the DR cluster and then use a toggle to define how long those snapshots live at the DR site. And then all of the same recovery options like live mount, export, and file level recovery that you get at site 1 will be available at site 2 should site 1 become unavailable. So you could continue on with business operations. In our second option here, and I apologize, I'm getting over a little cold. This is called Cloud On, and then this is where the process to convert a snapshot image on the appliance, or let's say it's already been archived in the cloud. We take that from BMDK format to an AMI in AWS or a VHD in Azure. So this is perfect for those wanting to provision a sandbox environment with the latest copy of production data in the cloud, say for test dev, or for purposes of DR. And I say DR lightly here with this option because obviously converting in the cloud takes time and money, and that does require some balance in how you want to approach DR this way. So we provide 2 options to this. You can either go through a pre-conversion process or convert only on demand in the event of a disaster. So figure if the goal is you want to spin up quickly, then you pre-convert by enabling automatic conversion and pay the money for the time it takes to run compute every single day to convert every single snapshot to an image in the cloud. Versus if you're cost conscious and you want to save money and longer RTOs are acceptable, then you could set it up to convert on demand only when a disaster takes place and wait it out. As for the cost itself, that's paid directly to AWS or Azure since you're leveraging those resources. It also depends on how many virtual machines and what the rough size of those virtual machines are, as well as the backup frequency according to the SLA policy assigned by Rubrik. And then what's under the hood here is that we are using a temporary Bolt instance, we call it the helper, and converter to process the compute task and reading the data, also copying it, and that's how the conversion into AMI or VHD format takes place. So essentially our appliance, the brick, will connect to the Bolt instance to read the data from cloud storage, or if it's coming from local snapshots on brick, it will read it as an on-demand, and it will just upload the delta. So that is Cloud On. And then if you're looking for DR as a service, we do partner with Assured Data Protection, which is a fully managed data recovery service. They do ensure near zero server recovery time on and off site in the event of a significant IT failure without the cost of operating a secondary data center or paying a surprise bill that goes directly to AWS or Azure. So they could get you up and running in minutes and hours versus days or weeks. This is an entirely turnkey solution. So as a customer, you will still own a Rubrik appliance at your primary site, and all you would be doing is specifying how many terabytes you would like replicated into their data center, where Rubrik also lives on hardware owned and managed entirely by their team. And then this is where as a service comes into play. So they'll do custom runbooks, DR testing, which I believe is 2 to 4 tests per year for no added cost for resources being used to test. You could define the boot order for which applications you want up and running first versus last. They also provide object storage for archive, 24/7 monitoring and daily reporting, pfSense firewall for network isolation, all pretty cool stuff, super convenient. So if you definitely are interested in this, please let us know because they are also happy and available to join calls with us as well, since they are a valued Rubrik partner. This is the only partner we do disaster recovery as a service with. Then lastly, we have AppFlows, which is only available for VMware environments today. The assumption here is that our customers has a vCenter at each site. This is all completely delivered as software as a service through our Polaris platform, and it provides what we call orchestrated DR between VMware vSphere virtual data centers. So you'll be able to test and execute failover and failback in 2 clicks. You'll also be able to leverage this for in-place recovery as well for those who do not necessarily have a second site. So first off, the way it works is we do remove the burden of manual scripting and labor in favor of automatic orchestrated recovery through recovery instructions called blueprints. And that's where you select a set of VMs, you name it. So for example, in the first set, you have tier 1 applications, then you have another set and another blueprint called tier 2 applications. Next, you'll define the boot order. for which these applications come up during failover or test failover. And then this will ensure their services will recover quickly instead of hours or days. So in the event of a disaster, you already have your data hydrated, warm, and sitting at the second site. And we have also incorporated ransomware remediation into this as well. So in the event of a ransomware attack, this means you as an operator can react quickly by seeing which VMs have been affected or encrypted through the use of our anomaly detection tool, Radar. Radar will go out and see these VMs. They'll see them as part of the application blueprint that you've defined, and then let you recover that application as quickly as possible. So you'll simply pick a point in time for the VMs at a certain state. You could rewind back, and then we'll bring the VMs online again in the order that you prescribed through the original blueprint. Second, it's cost effective, and that's because everything is already tied into existing Rubrik backup and inside our recovery platform. So we utilize your current replication efforts as well as continuous data protection, CDP, to give you the financial flexibility to automate DR and allow you to even include those lower tier apps that typically require manual effort because they're too expensive to protect with other vendors in the market. And then because everything's integrated, it's a single control plane for backup. You'll get CDP replication and DR all from a single pane of glass. There's centralized management with audit and compliance reporting. So that means fewer tools to manage, ultimately less risk, with enhanced visibility into the state of the backups themselves and DR health, as well as easy DR testing. So with that being said, if you are interested in learning more, I could definitely set up a demo with our AppFlows team, and they'll be happy to showcase that to you. And that's the end. So I'll definitely stick around for a few more minutes to answer any questions here, but just want to say, thank you for having me. Enjoy the day.
Well, thanks, Tracy. That was such an interesting presentation, and I appreciate you sticking through that cold. That's no fun.
Oh, thank you. I'm definitely on the up and up, but yeah, thank you.
'Tis the season for that. Well, I do want to point out one more time, we've got that poll question up, so please take a minute, let us know, give us some feedback, what else you want to hear from Rubrik. And Tracy, we're going to jump into some questions. You ready?
Sure.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to ask this one from Dr. Robert Desmond. Can the production system be used while restoration is in progress?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Absolutely. Can the production system be used while a restoration is in progress?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But that would also depend on the type of recovery option that we're using, right? Because you got to think some of our recovery options like LiveMount, that is not disruptive to production because all it's doing is creating a second copy of the VM. Whereas if you were to leverage something like instant recovery, that's actually going to deprecate the VM in production. So, you kind of want to tread carefully there. But all in all, it should not, as long as you're not using instant recovery.
Yeah, that's important. Okay, you talked a bit about a search option. Gabriel's wondering where that indexed list is located.
So the search option, I'm assuming he means the global predictive search functionality that we have. So when we back up, let's just say like your really spare VMs, we do that at the block level, and then we do index the metadata for all the files within those virtual machines, right? So that all takes place after the backup has taken place. But you'll see that all within a demo through our UI. So when you go out to search for a file, we're only going to be pulling back metadata, which essentially, pulls back fairly quickly since it's just metadata. But yeah, that's better explained in an actual demo for sure.
Yeah, always nice to get in and kind of get your hands in it. So there you go, Gabriel. You can book a demo to get a little more detail. Okay, are these Rubrik services available if we have Nutanix AHV cluster and not VMware ESX?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we do support Nutanix HV VMs today, and we would leverage their API for that. So yeah, no problem on that front. And then in addition to vSphere, because everybody does vSphere really well, we also support Hyper-V as well, in case someone else out there is wondering about Hyper-V.
But yeah, vSphere, Hyper-V, and Nutanix we all support through their native API integration.
That's awesome. Well, of course, we're always going to get a question about malicious attacks and ransomware. Can you talk about what recovery option you should use with Rubrik if there is a ransomware? And then somebody else was also actually specifically wondering about NAS support if in terms of backing up your backups.
Yeah, so for the first point, that is a great question, especially because we are leaning more towards being a security company, right? So we do have a number of options there depending on if you're doing a local in-place recovery at your main site or at a disaster recovery site, like some of the options I presented today. So if we're doing a local recovery at the primary site and you've been hit with ransomware, I always recommend doing an instant recovery or a live mount for those smaller mission-critical data sets, since that could be done, or that could also be done in batches, but that will allow VMs and databases to be mounted directly on top of Rubrik storage. So figure these could be spun up pretty quickly, since it does leverage SSDs in the appliance for all the performance and caching, which essentially means tight RTOs for these workloads in that event. But then once your environment is more stable, you'll get the option to either storage remotion or leverage scripts for other hypervisors to put these back into production. And then where things get really granular, our customers could leverage Radar, which maybe some of you have already heard of, but that will not only pinpoint exactly where a file or folder has been encrypted, but it will also give customers the option to restore those files or folders from a clean point-in-time snapshot, either to a separate folder in another location or from a current VM into another virtual machine. So there's plenty of options to get back up and running in the least amount of time needed without third-party forensics or paying a ransom in that case. And when you mentioned NAS as the second part of the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so for the NAS stuff, we do have a couple options available. So we have one called NAS Cloud Direct. And the way that works is all it is it's delivered as software as a service, and that would just require a stateless VM to be deployed in an already virtualized environment where all of that sort of backup and indexing takes place. And then we could push that data off after we back it up to, a cloud vendor of your choice. Or if the customer still has a requirement to keep data on-prem, we could support NFS targets, anything that's S3 object compatible and things like that. And then our second solution is NAS Direct Archive. That is similar, except it's going to leverage Rubrik appliances to perform all the metadata. The metadata has to land somewhere, so it's going to leverage an actual Rubrik appliance for that, but it's also going to do all the indexing and still push it through the appliance to a cloud provider of the customer's choice or somewhere on-prem. So those are the two options there, and yeah, definitely. I'm definitely happy to set up a demo for that as well. Should that person want to contact me directly?
There you go. And on that note, so if somebody's going through an issue, a ransomware attack, how much can they lean on Rubrik? What is the support that they're going to get from Rubrik?
Yeah, good question, as always. So we do have a ransomware incident response team available 24/7. So if any of our customers are attacked, just give us a call. We have this dedicated team. They've been through many attacks, and they know exactly what to do and assist where needed as it relates to incident response. And this comes free of charge no matter the support level that was purchased. So, our customers definitely won't be alone there. So, yeah.
Yeah, no one wants to be alone in the middle of an attack. The more friends, the better.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I wish we could keep chatting with you, Tracy. Unfortunately, we are a bit short on time, but I do want to ask, and on that note of kind of connecting with the Rubrik team, if somebody is ready to get started with the Rubrik solution or just wants to know more and find out if it's right for them, what's their next step? How do they get going?
Yeah, so if you guys are already leveraging like a value-added reseller, like a CDW and SHI, anything like that, feel free to reach out to those reps. Chances are they have us in their roster, right? They'll connect you to us, or just reach out to me directly, and I'm happy to route you to the appropriate team. Tracy.ator, A-T-O-R, @rubrik.com.
That's awesome. And I just want to mention that we just got a comment in from Erica, who said that she doesn't have a question, but she did want to say she saw an extensive demo, hands down, a very impressive product. So high fives from Erica.
Thanks, Erica. I'm super flattered.
Well, thank you again for being here with us today, Tracy. And for everyone that's asking questions, Tracy is here on live chat, and then the team will also follow up with you after the event. So if your question didn't get asked, still a chance to hear from them later. Thank you again, Tracy and Rubrik.
Thank you.
Okay, and I know I just got a lot of comments from people that were struggling a little bit with the poll, and I just want to address that. There was a glitch, and I just didn't want to refresh in the middle of Tracy's presentation and risk disconnecting her. So I have put the poll back up. It's refreshed. It should be working. Please do take a minute now if you were trying earlier. Run on back to your screen. Click on that. Let us know what else you would like to hear from Rubrik. Lots of great information in Tracy's presentation. And I'm sure there's lots of follow-up that you would like to get. I know we didn't get to all the questions. Lots of great questions still coming in. So do keep an eye out. You will hear back from the Rubrik team as well. If you are looking for more information right away, I'm going to highly recommend that you go into that Handouts tab, follow the Rubrik link, click Explore. You can look around at Rubrik.com, actually book your demo. We all know that the best way to get to know a solution is to actually get your hands in it, to play with it, to explore and see how it works for you. So go book that demo and check that out. I know that we have not given you a lot of time with the refreshed poll, so I'm just going to speak very slowly here and give you another chance. As Alan said, Houston, we have had a problem. We did. And Amy, thank you for the high five. We did get that fixed. So hopefully you guys can get a chance to fill that out real quick here. While I'm kind of stalling for time, I'll just start introducing our last session of the day. Guys, I can't believe we're already here. We've made it to the last session. It always comes up a little bit sooner than I think it will. And we definitely have a great high note to end on. So I am going to move away from the poll. Last chance to click. If you haven't clicked yet, to let Rubrik know what else you'd like to get. You've got about 3 seconds left. Go for it, go for it, go for it. All right, so next up in our Ecocast, our very last session of the day, I'm so excited to introduce Bassam Khan, VP of Product and Technical Marketing Engineering at Gigamon. Bassam, thank you so much for stalling a bit there for time. I know you have a great presentation geared up for us, so let's jump right in.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so we've got an action-packed session today. We're going to be talking about securing your cloud workloads. And we've heard about SaaS, we've heard of PaaS, and today's focus really is around IaaS and how we protect it. And before we jump into that, I wanted to have one slide on Gigamon. We are the most dominant, what's called visibility analytics fabric, which the next generation is called deep observability pipeline. We were also known as network packet broker. That's the space we play in. It's visibility into your network traffic. We are deployed in over 4,200 sites. Some of the largest banks, some of the largest insurance companies, healthcare companies, 10 out of 10 of the top federal agencies have deployed us. But what we really are keen on are the global patents and our ability to innovate and establish ourselves in cutting edge and leading edge technologies, and then being able to turn that into something that our customers can use. So I'm going to go over a few slides, and I'm going to hopefully be able to jump into a demo that'll show you some of the latest cutting edge technologies that we have that I guarantee you have not seen ever before. And it's a very, very powerful technology, and it's catching on very, very quickly in the market. Before any of that, let me talk a little bit about security and security concerns that we hear from our customers. There's a ton of cloud migration work going on. We're sort of in the busy season for now and probably for the next 5 years. All the easy workloads have moved to the cloud. Now it becomes the much more complicated workloads moving into cloud. So if it's an email system, if it's an HR system, those were easily transportable into a SaaS environment. But when you start to look at cloud workloads, IaaS type of workloads, applications that need to be refactored, rebuilt, that's when we run into some concerns around, is my cloud environment secure? So we delved into research recently. The number one concern continues to be security, and specifically around ransomware within security. Of course, there are constant stream of new vulnerabilities that we keep hearing about. So things like Log4j, it could be external vulnerabilities. It could also be internal vulnerabilities where a developer moved too fast. They opened up a console and the console was not set up properly, was not configured properly. The third point is really interesting here on cryptocurrency mining. Google's threat research team did a deep dive on Google GCP environments that were breached. The report came out end of last year, so November of last year. And 9 out of times that environment was breached, the attacker put some kind of a cryptocurrency mining into that system. So 86% of the time, they install cryptocurrency mining because that's the easiest route, and that is a real thing that's happening out there that we should be concerned about. When you talk to Gartner, they will say the main reason for this is really around ignoring the shared responsibility model. So when you have an IaaS environment, you're sharing the security responsibility along with the cloud service provider. Just like they don't guarantee that your application will run perfectly, they guarantee that the servers will be up. Same thing with security. They don't guarantee the end-to-end security for your application. And that used to be easy to do, except our infrastructure has been changing massively. So let me kind of turn the clock back about 10, 15 years here. This is what our network looked like. And we had a bunch of tools that we deployed in the data center that needed access to the network traffic. So what did? We deployed and we put in span ports, tap ports. We collected all of the data for all the tools, whatever data they need to see, except the network keeps changing, infrastructure keeps changing all the time. So we get a bigger and bigger and bigger spaghetti mess. So Gigamon came along. The way we're built, and this is one of the innovations we did when we were founded, you plug in Gigamon one time into your infrastructure, and then we will send the data to tools. So we say that don't bring your tool to the data, bring your data to the tools. And simply put, this is something that Gigamon's been providing a lot of value to our customers. Except now the world continues to change. It doesn't look like that anymore. Now we've got hybrid multi-cloud in our environment where I have to reinvent a lot of the tooling. Now I've got this kind of similar situation starting up in cloud, and then now you bring in 5G for corporate networks, you bring in IoT, OT, and increased adoption. We're seeing an exponential growth in adoption of IoT, OT, driven by 5G, driven by other technologies as well. Then throw on top of that zero trust, where the policies can change on a dime. So, for example, I want to decrypt traffic and send it to these tools, and the policy changes. Now I should not be sending decrypted traffic to these tools. Now I should be sending maybe masked traffic that's somewhat decrypted or partially decrypted. So these policies change all the time, and zero trust is a big driver of what we're hearing from our customers. The last point here, according to, again, Gartner, there will be 1.8 data center renovations, upgrades done per large organization in 2022. So that's a lot of turmoil. So our good old comfortable zone has changed, and the need for network visibility becomes greater than ever before. And that's where Gigamon comes in. On the left-hand side, you've got your infrastructure. There's lots of communication, lots of data in motion happening there. On the right-hand side, you've got a whole slew of tools that needs access to that data in order for it to function. And that's where Gigamon comes in. So rather than plugging each tool into the infrastructure, you're plugging in Gigamon to the infrastructure, and then we're able to send the traffic to any tool out there. And not only do we send the traffic, the basic functions will access the traffic, no matter what the platform is. A lot of platforms, cloud platforms, even on-premises platforms, VMs and containers, they have different types of access mechanisms. They have different types of orchestration tools, different types of scaling up and scaling down types of tools. So we worry about that. You don't have to worry about getting visibility into data in motion. Then we'll broker to any tool on the right-hand side, and quite often we'll do some transformations, anywhere from deduplicating packets, filtering, masking. There's all kinds of technologies there, including TLS decryption, all the way up to TLS 1.3. So depending on what the tool needs, we'll send it precisely that right data to the tool, and no matter where that tool is running. There's also an analysis part. So through deep packet inspection, we will provide what we call deep observability pipeline. Will provide metadata about the traffic, up to 5,000 different metadata attributes. And I will close this session with a quick demo of what that actually looks like. So hopefully this makes sense. So this is mostly about brokering packets. So I'm going to jump next into the analysis part as well. And this is the new technology that we're trailblazing in, and we're getting a tremendous amount of adoption by our customers. So we launched this sort of end of last year, roughly. It's the ability to extract out metadata for cloud workloads. And now we've partnered with several observability vendors. So I'm sure most of you have some level of observability tools that's doing some function. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to show you how Gigamon with network observability, deep observability pipeline complements your tools that use Melt. So as you know, Melt is metrics, events, logs, and traces, and that's what all of the observability tools currently that's monitoring cloud workload are designed to work off of. They're not designed to ingest packets. They're not designed, it's just too much volume, it's just something that they don't do. So having Melt data is really good for going deep into any host that the agent's running on, right? It's very, very effective. You can pinpoint, grab the exactly right data, so the volume's kind of low. Except what happens is you're missing out on unmanaged devices. You're missing out on if you put a host, an agent on that host, it's going to consume some level of resources for that host that it's running on. And also, a lot of times an attacker will mess with the Melt data. So one of the common attack techniques, one of the first steps an attacker does when they get in is they'll turn down logging, or they'll do other things to turn down their footprint. And that's possible to do using Melt, but that is not possible to do using network communications, whether it's for C2 or lateral movement, whatever it might be. Network is what we call the ground truth, the ultimate source of data itself. So that's great. So we provide visibility network data. What does it actually look like? So this is the one technical diagram I have before I jump into the demo. When you look at any of these observability tools, so New Relic, Datadog, Dynatrace, could be Sumo Logic, could be Splunk, could be any of these tools, they are basing their data on Melt that they're ingesting based on some agent that's running on a host. Typically, 99% of the cases, this is what it looks like. The agent sending over data. Where Gigamon comes in is we complement that data by tapping either through our virtual tap or supporting native taps like AWS VPC mirroring, packet mirroring from Google. We'll support whatever the native access mechanism is. We'll take the data in what we call vSeries, it's called the Cloud Suite, and at that point we'll extract out metadata about the traffic, and we'll send it using the New Relic agent, using Datadog agent, whatever it might be, to provide additional visibility into what's going on not just on the host, but across the host communications. And guess what? This is not for just managed hosts. This is for unmanaged hosts as well. These are could be for BYO. It could be for apps that don't have the agent, that don't have the SDK attached to it. It could be for IoT. It could be for a printer. It could be for heart monitor. It could be for a fish tank Wi-Fi unit. It doesn't matter. So what all of this brings to our customers, and this is what's being adopted super quickly nowadays, is basically visibility into all traffic, not just north-south, but east-west, visibility into unmanaged hosts as well, not just managed hosts. And it's a way to leverage the customer's investment on their observability tool. I'm going to show a demo on New Relic, but again, we support other observability and STIM tools as well. The use cases are just now starting to build. I'll show you a bunch of use cases, but it goes way deeper. So anywhere from finding cryptocurrency mining, finding suspicious activities. I won't get into the nuances of port spoofing, but it's one of the attack techniques. Detecting, are there any certificates, TLS certificates that are going to expire in the next week, next month coming up? So a lot of talking but sound. What does this actually look like? So I am going to attempt to share my screen here. So hopefully you can see a lot of little icons here. I will go into the demo itself. So keep in mind, what we're showing in this demo is Gigamon's integration. Oops, I need to log in. Integration into New Relic and more. There we go. Nope. Okay. So we've built a dashboard based on what we call agentless view. So this is based on our data that we were tapping, if you remember the mechanism. So we're actually looking at the network data, not data derived from an agent that's running on a host. And there's quite a bit that you can do with this data once you bring it in. So remember, this is not a security tool per se, but we're bringing security functionality to these tools to have another layer of defense in our customers' defense in depth posture. So what version of SSL are running? Are there any weak ciphers? Is there SSL 1.0 running out there, which sometimes actually this might even be a 1.0. So now we're bringing in data, not just from managed but unmanaged hosts, on things that are really hard to get otherwise about that infrastructure, about that application, about that network, about the whatever's happening, whether it's cloud, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, on-prem, doesn't matter because we're looking at network traffic. DHCP, is there any DHCP poisoning or DHCP spoofing going on? External DHCP resolutions that are happening for hijacked kinds of environments. What are the applications that are running? We identify over 3,000 different applications. What are the DNS queries happening? Is there any, I meant to say DNS spoofing going on? Who are the top talkers? HTTP response codes. So what are the codes coming back? If we see a spike in, I forget, it was like 402 or something, that implies that there might be some bot type of traffic coming in. HTTP response time, this is the one non-security related use case that basically says, you know what, if we see a spike in some HTTP response time, but my TCP has stayed flat, guess what? That's not a networking problem. That is an application problem that's spanning multiple tiers, let's say. This is where it starts to get even more interesting. Now we can see any kind of suspicious traffic. So there are about 13 or 15 different types of cryptocurrency mining that we can detect and report to our customers. So anywhere from Monero, Bitcoin, Ethereum, a bunch of others. And it's also, we also look for shadow IT or suspicious traffic like BitTorrent, any kind of P2P. It doesn't matter. We're able to find all of this based on looking at the network traffic, SMB movements, and so on. So I can keep going on this dashboard. These are some use cases. Let me touch on something else that's kind of cool, which is CISA. So security is not static. So there's some dashboards. What's really cool about this integration is that there are these advisories that come out every so often, like every year there's a new advisory that comes out, or sometimes more often if there's like a Log4j SolarWinds. This is what to do for that. And if you look at these advisories, like for example, this one from CISA, they have a really specific steps on they recommend people take. So, you know, disable SMB1, SMB2, watch out for these ports if you see any traffic, if you see a spike in SMB traffic. These are things to watch out for when there's activities related to ransomware happening in your environment. So that's great. That document comes out. So what we did and what our customers are able to do now is turn on a dime by creating, let's say, a CISA dashboard or enhancing their existing dashboard to include this CISA guideline. So if there's any SMB version 1 running, boom, you've got an alert based on the network visibility that we get, not just for managed, for all hosts. We get to see any kind of SMB1, SMB2 version 2 traffic still happening. Our DP connections going on, suspicious ports. So if there's somebody that's, let's say, operating over port 22, which is SSH port, sending that traffic over port 443, pretending that it's HTTPS traffic, that's a red flag. You know, that's at least a yellow flag, if nothing else. Things to watch out for: SMB spikes in SMB transactions that we looked at. So that's one example. This is not meant to be the comprehensive list. So if there's, for example, when Log4j came out, Gigamon, we actually published an advisory end of last year that said, here's some things to watch out for Log4j. So the point of all of this is not any specific dashboard. The point of all of this is the power that customers get using an existing tool to do new functionalities around security, to expand the visibility of that existing tool into unmanaged hosts as well. So very, very powerful visibility, and then the ability to turn on a dime and create new dashboards that basically will pull in data based on network transactions. And I didn't show the Gigamon part of this. If there's another metric, for example, you wanted an SSL name or SSL host name, you simply go into Gigamon's tool, you check off hostname, and it'll show up in your query. It's just a simple SQL query that I won't get into right now, in your observability tool. So the end-to-end visibility is very, very dynamic. You can simply say, I want this attribute and these 10 other attributes. And as I mentioned, we provide over 5,000 attributes, and they all come through really fast into these types of tools. Very, very cool stuff. So with that, what I just wanted to close the session with is to say that there's a lot of visibility that network provides. It's network-derived intelligence, what it's called, that we also call deep observability pipeline. And there's a lot of visibility that now cloud owners are finding, like, holy cow, I kind of ignored the network all along because I don't need to worry about SLAs because my CSP provides SLAs. But there's value in looking at network traffic for security reasons, for finding unwanted activities, and just for general troubleshooting. So that's the big trend that we've seen out there.
Well, that's awesome, Bassam. Thank you so much for such an amazing presentation and for sticking around to answer some questions. We've got lots of great questions coming in already, so I'm going to jump right into it. First here, Rob is asking, in general, is Gigamon a virtual security appliance? Do you call it that, or is that just one piece of the puzzle?
Yeah, so we are the infrastructure underneath any tool you have, whether security tools, you have monitoring tools, you have observability tools like I just showed. So we are the foundational. If you look at something like a zero trust assumes what we call implicit trust. Zero trust assumes that you have visibility into all traffic, all API requests going on, whether it's north-south or east-west. Now, getting access to those requests that are going east-west, Gigamon is a tool that ensures, it's a platform that ensures that all of your tools are seeing all the traffic without blind spots. So that is the main function of Gigamon. That's what Gigamon, what we call GigaView, provides, is visibility into all information. We also have a specific security tool called Threat Insight, which is a unique guided SaaS NDR. So it's a network detection response tool. What we heard from our customers is that there's a lot of threats on the networks. Rather than just delivering the data, can you provide more visibility and understanding into threats, what's going on? That's a whole other topic. I'll skip over that for now, but it's another area of Gigamon that's been growing really fast, is our NDR tool itself. But in summary, the foundation, the Gigamon values of being a foundation to every tool to make sure that the tools are seeing the data that they need.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, Bassam, another question for you. What about insight into containers?
Yes, we provide insight into containers as well. So basically using either your orchestration or our orchestration tools, our management tool, you can deploy the virtual tap into Kubernetes worker nodes. Then with that, we'll provide visibility into the managed workloads and running in the Docker containers. It, of course, auto scales as ephemeral pods are proliferating and they're moving around. We worry about that. We just make sure that all of the network communication gets sent out. So yes, we do container visibility. This is one of the unique things that our customers have brought us in for. Because that is a blind spot, that is an east-west blind spot, and it's becoming more and more as the adoption of Kubernetes goes higher and higher.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Well, Pete here is wondering if you can identify rogue VMs in the open structure.
We can identify all VMs, and we are really good at extracting traffic out from VMs. Whether or not they're rogue VMs, whether what processes are running on those VMs, is it a cryptocurrency or whatever? If it's indicated on the network at a network level, then we can identify. So basically, what we're doing to let's define cryptocurrency from a rogue VM that somebody spun up would be for us to do pattern matching on the traffic. If you know cryptocurrency, it's not a standard command and control type of a situation. It's much more quiet and low and slow, and it doesn't generate logs. It doesn't generate melt information saying, hey, I'm here doing cryptocurrency mining. So they tend to be as stealthy as possible. If you look at the Tesla cryptocurrency Monero hack that happened a couple of years ago, they were modulating their CPU usage, so they stayed quiet when the VM was quiet. They went up when the VM went loud. So long answer to your question of do we support, do we identify rogue VMs? We don't identify rogue VMs. We identify what we're seeing on the network. And then other tools to say, you know what, Bassam was not supposed to start up a VM. What's he doing? We're not in that business. What we are in the business of is finding activities that are happening on those, and then helping your tools decide what to do with those activities.
Well, Bassam, this has been so interesting, and I wish we could keep going, but we are a little short on time. So before we wrap up, if somebody out there is wanting to jump right into the Gigamon solution or learn a little bit more and see if it's the right answer for them, what's their first step? Where do they get started?
Please do contact us. We can walk you through. There's a self-test drive. So if you go to our website, gigamon.com, you'll find a self-drive for AWS. We're enhancing that right now. It's a slightly older version, so it actually does look a lot better than what you see. But you do get to play with it. I would highly recommend just pick up the phone, call us up, or set up a time, and we'll walk you through it as well. There's a lot that I did not cover that a lot of our customers have been using Gigamon very extensively for.
Well, thank you so much, Bassam, for joining us. Absolutely fascinating presentation, really interesting demo, and a great Q&A session. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
My pleasure. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, and once again, I've put up that poll question for you. I checked it, guys. It's working great. So go on in and fill out that poll. Let us know what else you would like to hear from Gigamon, and I can see those answers coming in already. Give us some feedback on any of the additional information that you would like to get from Gigamon. Again, just so many amazing presentations today. We're not quite done. We do still have, as I know some of you are waiting for, one more prize to give away. I do want to remind you all to click into that handouts tab in the audience console. You can read more from Gigamon, learn about the products, dig into their solutions a bit more. Lots of great content, so please get on in there and start exploring. And a big thank you to everyone who submitted a question today in any of the sessions, and for filling out the poll question. Now, while you're still working on that poll there, let's do our very last prize drawing. Remember that all winners must be in attendance during the live webinar, and we will be in touch with all three of our winners today, plus all of those best questions about claiming the prize after we wrap. So the final winner of the $500 Amazon gift card is Frank Call of Missouri. Frank Call of Missouri, you have won a $500 Amazon gift card. I'm going to repeat all three of our winners. Arlette Bacon of Georgia, Sean Law of Georgia, okay, Frank Call of Missouri. You all three have won a $500 Amazon gift card. We will follow up with you as well as the best question prize winners from each section in our webinar, so stay tuned for that. Still getting some awesome high fives for all our presentations coming in. Thank you for everyone who's sending in that positive feedback. I love to see that. I'm going to move forward, so last chance to click on the poll there. Okay, get it in, get it in. All right. Well, if anyone out on the Ecocast today is thinking that you would like to chat with us about presenting on an Eco or Megacast or a webinar, we would love to hear from you. So reach out to us via email at connect@actualtechmedia.com. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank all of our speakers today from Sophos, Lacework, Quantum, Rubrik, and Gigamon for making this Ecocast possible. I hope that you've all gotten some interesting insight into ransomware prevention and recovery. You know I always learn a ton from these. This one in particular had a lot of great, some more on the philosophical side, some on the technical side. It was just a really fun day to explore with all of you. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. A special thank you to everyone who attended, asked some awesome questions. Don't forget to check out the Actual Tech Media events portal for some upcoming webinars. Speaking of which, I do want to invite you all to come next week on Wednesday, June 15th for a megacast on devising cloud strategies and solutions. Again, that's Wednesday, June 15th. That's 12 p.m. Eastern, which is 9 a.m. Pacific. It's going to be a great one, so make sure you head on in there, register on the Actual Tech Media calendar now. I hope to see you all there, and until then, thanks again and have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day.